Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're going to fall asleep like it's 1327. Yes, you heard that right. No blackout curtains. No white noise machines. No memory foam pillows. Just you, the dim flicker of a tallow candle, a lumpy straw mattress that's somehow both damp and dusty, and the very real possibility that you'll wake up in 2 hours to feed the fire, whisper a midnight prayer, or contemplate your sins. Because here's the thing. In the Middle Ages, sleep didn't work the way we think of it now. There wasn't this nice, clean 8-hour uninterrupted block. No, that's a modern invention. You're about to experience something called segmented sleep, and honestly it might make a weird kind of sense. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments, what city are you in and what time is it right now where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just dozed off. Not the slow drifting kind where your thoughts dissolve into a pleasant haze, but the finally collapsed after chores and complaints and the third mug of watered-down ale kind of sleep. You're tucked into your lumpy straw mattress, blanket pulled tight against your shoulders, ears straining for any hint of danger, be it a dog barking outside, a goat knocking over a bucket, or the faint groan of your neighbor shifting in the same bed. For a moment, the world feels safe, soft, and quiet. And then, 4 hours later, you wake. Not because you had a nightmare. Not because someone stepped on your foot. Not because you're anxious about taxes or politics. You wake because this is what people did in the Middle Ages. This is your first sleep ending, your middle of the night intermission, your second act hasn't even started yet. It's called segmented sleep, or in old texts sometimes first sleep and second sleep. And for centuries it was completely normal. Modern 8-hour slumbers? That's a recent invention. Back then, your sleep was two distinct phases separated by an hour or two of wakefulness. And while your modern brain might groan at the disruption, this was considered practical, even beneficial. You shift on your bed, trying to find a more comfortable position on the scratchy straw. Your eyes are adjusting to the dim orange glow of embers in the hearth. Somewhere nearby, a cat stretches and yawns, the fire crackling softly. It's quiet but not empty. There's always a faint murmur of life in the house. Perhaps someone is whispering a prayer, or the wind is rattling the shutters. Maybe the youngest child is waking up too, their small whimpers weaving into the fabric of the house's nocturnal symphony. During this interval between sleeps, people did a remarkable variety of activities, some practical, some spiritual, some intimate. You might get up to feed the fire or check the animals if you live on a farm. You might take a short walk in the dark, head outside to relieve yourself, or sit by the window, listening to the nocturnal symphony of frogs and owls. Wealthier households? They might read by candlelight, though books were scarce and expensive. The devout might kneel on the cold floor for prayer, reciting psalms in low whispers. Some couples, if the mood struck and the house was quiet, might steal a tender moment, safe in the knowledge that no one would raise an eyebrow. And let's be honest, this was the perfect opportunity for introspection or secret planning. Someone plotting tomorrow's market route, someone else quietly nursing a grudge, a young scribe jotting down observations of dreams or omens. It's hard not to imagine how surreal it would feel if you tried this today. Imagine waking up at 2 a.m., not in a cozy modern bedroom, but on a straw mattress, candle flame flickering, the smell of smoke and damp hay in your nostrils, the sounds of a house alive with quiet breathing. You're fully awake, yet it's still the middle of the night. No coffee to jolt you, no smartphone to scroll. Just you and time. Historians, including Roger Akirch, have found hundreds of references to this segmented sleep pattern. Diaries, court records, medical treatises, and even literature often assume that the reader will wake in the middle of the night, engaging in ordinary tasks before returning to bed. In other words, you would not be considered sleep-deprived. This wakeful interval was expected, normal, and socially sanctioned. For some, this was sacred time. Monks and nuns in monasteries would rise in these quiet hours for matins, the nocturnal prayer service. You can picture them, long black robes brushing the stone floors, chanting psalms under candlelight, careful not to stumble or snore. The ritual could last an hour or more. And outside the monastery walls in ordinary homes, people might kneel by a small altar, whispering prayers to secure a safe morning, or to confess imagined sins that crept into their minds during the day. And yet, there were practical reasons too. You might check on a fire, make sure the livestock is breathing, water a small herb garden, or fetch water. You might rearrange bedding that has shifted while everyone slept. In essence, the waking period served both spiritual and functional purposes, a little human interlude in the dark hours. Imagine walking through a quiet medieval town. Cobblestone streets are slick with frost or mud, the windows dark, no streetlights, no cars, no distractions other than the soft creaking of wood and the occasional cough or grunt of a neighbor tending to some urgent business. You step carefully, mindful of stray chickens or goats wandering freely. Your breath clouds in the cold night air, the sky above punctuated with a million stars. The world is calm except for your heartbeat echoing softly, marking the rhythm of the first sleep ending. Then perhaps you climb back into your shared bed. If you're lucky, there's space. If you're less lucky, there's a sibling, a cousin, a neighbor, maybe even a pet sprawled across the mattress. You nudge gently, trying not to wake anyone. You think about the events of the day, the prayers whispered, the fire tended, the chores done, or left undone. And gradually, the second sleep beckons. There's something almost meditative about this pattern. Modern science has shown that biphasic or segmented sleep might actually be more aligned with our natural circadian rhythms, especially in environments without artificial light. Some studies suggest that this rhythm allowed for deeper, more restorative sleep in each segment. But historians debate how universal this pattern really was. Was it limited to colder, darker climates? Did urban dwellers follow it, or was it primarily rural? Did the wealthy, with their candlelit rooms, maintain it, or did convenience change the pattern? Historians are still debating how widespread segmented sleep truly was in the Middle Ages. Despite the uncertainty, there is ample evidence that the first sleep, the middle of the night wakefulness, and the second sleep were routine. For some, these hours became a cherished period of solitude and reflection. For others, they were simply another chore to perform, another small inconvenience in a day crowded with labor. And for many they were both, an ordinary but slightly magical space where time stretched, allowing humans to live between two worlds, consciousness and unconsciousness, night and morning. And so, as you lie in that straw mattress, candlelight flickering against rough plaster walls, you begin to drift once more. Perhaps you whisper a prayer for safety, or murmur a few lines of poetry you memorized, or simply enjoy the quiet, the way the shadows stretch across the floorboards. The dog shifts on the hearth, a faint rumble of contentment. The cat curls tighter, purring softly. The child snores, a tiny rhythm in the larger pulse of the household. You let the warmth of your blanket seep in, the memories of the first sleep blending into the slow, soothing embrace of the second. You drift. The darkness becomes a soft cradle. Time feels suspended. And when morning eventually arrives, bringing pale light through the thin window, you awaken as you always have, not groggy, not disoriented, but alive, rested, human. There is no rush. There is only the rhythm of life, practiced for centuries. Sleep, wake, reflect, return to sleep. You are part of a tradition older than industrial clocks, older than the rigid 8-hour standard. Tonight, you are medieval and your body is remembering the patterns of ancestors long gone. And if you ever find yourself waking in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling or your phone's screen, wondering why sleep feels broken, just remember, maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just following the rhythm of the two-part night. A quiet smile settles over your face. The embers fade. You inhale, exhale. The second sleep embraces you fully this time, soft and deep, like a gentle wave returning to the shore. The world is still outside, but inside, you are cocooned, part of a centuries-old ritual, a human being in perfect harmony with the night. You've just stepped inside. The door creaks shut behind you and the smell hits first. A blend of smoke, sweat, hay, and something faintly sour you don't want to identify. You glance around, noticing the low wooden beams, a flickering candle on a shelf, and the rough, uneven floorboards. This is your lodging for the night. A medieval inn, rustic in the extreme, where comfort is measured in survival rather than luxury. And tonight, as luck would have it, your assigned bed is shared. Not in a, let me offer you an extra blanket kind of way. No, this is the full medieval economy of space. One straw bed, two or sometimes four sleepers. You're about to meet your bedmate, a complete stranger, and you're supposed to relax and sleep like nothing is unusual. You try to picture it in modern terms. Sharing a bed with a stranger in 2025 would be awkward at best. But here, it's practical. You are not meant to be alone. Privacy is a luxury, heat is a necessity, and every inch of hay counts. So you breathe deep, muster a polite smile, and climb onto the lumpy mattress. The bed is a simple frame with a thick layer of straw piled on top. If you're lucky, the innkeeper has sprinkled some dried herbs into the straw, lavender, rosemary, maybe a hint of juniper, to keep the worst pests away. If not, you're rolling the dice with fleas, lice, and the occasional overly curious mouse. You shift, trying to make space for the stranger, who seems equally aware of the delicacy of their situation. Neither of you speaks, which is fine. Conversation would be inefficient. Survival comes first. As you settle in, the stranger gives a small nod. You nod back. That's your introduction. No names, no small talk, just mutual acknowledgement of shared human frailty. You each position your limbs carefully, negotiating the limited territory of the bed. Your shoulder grazes theirs, brief, harmless contact, but enough to make you acutely aware of the shared warmth. This is the essence of medieval lodging: efficiency, warmth, and community in a single, scratchy hay mattress. You take in the room. A few other beds are occupied, each with its own cluster of bodies, and a low hum of breathing fills the space. Some people have their animals nearby, a goat tucked under a blanket, a dog curled at someone's feet. Animals weren't banned from beds back then. Their warmth was often a practical solution to freezing temperatures, especially in poorly insulated buildings. You glance sideways at a piglet that has somehow found its way under a blanket. You wonder if it's plotting a coup against its human co-sleeper. You smile, then settle further into the straw. Now, let's talk about what happens after you've made peace with the smell, the prickly mattress, and the close proximity of a complete stranger. You lie there and listen. There's a rhythm to these shared rooms. The creak of a bedboard, the snore of a fellow traveler, the occasional shuffle of straw, the distant laughter or argument from the tavern below. It's chaos, but it's predictable chaos, almost like music. A lullaby of medieval living. Some people would use these middle-of-the-night wake-ups, like the first sleep we explored, to check their gear, make notes, or pray quietly. Others might silently adjust their blankets to accommodate the stranger's sudden movement. If someone is prone to snoring, there's an unspoken etiquette. Shift, roll, accept, or attempt to muffle it with a straw pillow. Survival depends as much on diplomacy as on warmth. This practice of shared sleeping spaces is well documented. In inns, alehouses, and even some wealthier homes, multiple sleepers crowded together on a single bed was the norm rather than the exception. Privacy was almost non-existent. People valued heat, proximity, and resource efficiency over personal space. In many towns, one large straw bed might accommodate up to 4 individuals. And in rural areas, it was often common to share a bed with family members and livestock, because animals generated body heat that could stave off the cold of an uninsulated stone or wooden house. You lie back, noticing the stranger's breathing slow, the warmth radiating from their body. You start to appreciate the strange intimacy of the situation. There's a practical beauty here. Medieval people didn't get hung up on personal boundaries. They didn't have Instagram stories to post or a constant need for me time. They had survival, warmth, and community in close quarters. And you, lying next to someone you don't know, are participating in the same centuries-old tradition. Still, there's humor if you look closely. For instance, imagine the conversations that must have occurred during wakeful nights in these inns. Did travelers silently judge each other's snoring? Did they swap stories about bedbugs, mice, or the last innkeeper who forgot to change the straw? Probably. And though none of this was written in history books, you can imagine it. The quiet, conspiratorial laughter of strangers, sharing survival tips in whispers while everyone pretended not to notice the occasional insect crawl across a sleeve or face. Meanwhile, the straw bed itself is an interesting artifact. Cheap and practical, straw was the bedding of choice for the majority of medieval travelers. It provided minimal cushioning but some insulation. Straw was cheap, renewable, and surprisingly effective at absorbing moisture. However, it also harbored pests. Fleas, lice, and other small vermin were considered almost inevitable roommates. Inns might sprinkle herbs in the straw or burn them nearby to repel these unwanted guests. Some wealthier families employed a servant whose sole job was checking and changing the straw regularly, a luxury you would not enjoy tonight. So as you lie there, you accept that you, the stranger, and the stray fleas are all participants in a nightly medieval ritual. Your mind wanders. You think about modern hotels where a single person can claim an entire bed, complain about thread count, and scroll endlessly on a glowing phone. You can't help but chuckle quietly. In the Middle Ages, luxury was about survival and social compliance, not comfort or convenience. Sharing a bed with a stranger was considered practical, normal, and even morally appropriate. To sleep alone, by contrast, was unusual and sometimes suspect, especially for those who believed that evil spirits roamed the night, and that a solitary sleeper was more vulnerable. The room falls quieter as everyone settles. Even the animals are still, except for the occasional snort or shuffle. You feel a strange sense of connection, the kind that modern life rarely affords. The stranger beside you is anonymous, yet your fates are intertwined for the night. One cough, one shift of weight, one accidental elbow to the ribs, and you respond in kind, adjusting and readjusting like participants in an unspoken dance. This is cooperation on a deeply human level. You may never see this person again, yet for this night, you exist together in a small, fragrant ecosystem of hay, warmth, and shared humanity. You begin to notice the subtleties, how the straw conforms under your weight, how the warmth of another human radiates and diffuses the chill of the night air, how shared space shapes the way you breathe, move, and even dream. You marvel at the ingenuity, a single bed serving 4 functions at once: sleeping surface, heat source, social structure, and communal ritual. It's efficient. It's intimate. It's a little bit hilarious if you stop and think about it. By the time your second sleep approaches, you're adjusted. You've accepted the scratches, the occasional nudge, and the irregular rhythm of your bedmate. You lie down fully, letting the heat seep into your body, letting the hay cradle your form. The world outside the inn is dark and quiet, but inside you feel a rhythm, the human rhythm of shared survival, centuries in the making. Your mind drifts, imagining countless travelers who have done this before you. Merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, thieves, and poets, all trusting a shared bed for warmth, comfort, and perhaps a fleeting sense of camaraderie. And as sleep washes over you again, your body finally surrenders to the night. You are part of an ancient, ongoing tradition. You are a stranger, a fellow human, and a participant in a rhythm that has sustained countless nights of survival and modest comfort. The inn is alive with silent breathing and soft rustling of hay. You drift deeper into your dreams, the stranger beside you now a silent guardian, your body cocooned in warmth and history. It is remarkable, isn't it? How necessity shapes intimacy. How the practicalities of medieval life, crowded inns, cheap straw mattresses, and freezing stone walls, create a rhythm of shared human experience. You wonder if your modern self, wrapped in personal space and silence, could ever appreciate the peculiar beauty of this arrangement. And you realize, perhaps this closeness, this proximity, is part of why people in the Middle Ages felt a quiet connection to one another, even in a world that was harsh, cold, and unpredictable. Historians are still debating how common this practice truly was outside of rural inns and monasteries, and whether urban travelers adhered to the same routines. Tonight, though, you don't need to debate. You lie there, immersed in the simple miracle of shared warmth, soft straw, and the comforting rhythm of breathing bodies. You breathe deeply, noticing the subtle sense of hay, herbs, and human presence. Your muscles relax. Your heartbeat slows. And as the night carries you toward the second sleep, you are cocooned in an experience both intimate and communal, a medieval lesson in how humans adapted to survive, rest, and find warmth together. Sleep descends. The stranger shifts slightly but does not wake. The animals snuggle deeper. The candle burns low, guttering softly. The inn is alive, yet serene, a sanctuary of warmth, human presence, and faint, fragrant chaos. And you are perfectly content, enveloped in centuries of nocturnal wisdom, a part of a world that once was, and somehow still is, through the simple act of sharing a bed. You step inside your humble abode after a long day, the sun dipping low and shadows stretching across the rough-hewn walls. Your shoes leave tiny dust clouds on the floorboards which in reality aren't even proper boards. Most likely they are packed dirt, slightly uneven, cool to the touch, with occasional hidden pebbles pressing against your bare feet. You glance around for your sleeping arrangements, and there it is, your bed. Not a bed like you know, not a mattress with springs and memory foam, but a straw-filled pallet directly on the floor. You might wrinkle your nose, but the truth is, this will be your most reliable sleeping spot for the foreseeable future. This isn't some temporary fix, some makeshift solution in a pinch. In the life of a medieval peasant, or even a modest craftsman, this floor mattress is the epicenter of your nighttime world. It's your sanctuary, your personal space, your spot of warmth and relative comfort in a house that offers very little of either. You lower yourself onto it, feeling the coarse straw compress under your weight. It smells faintly of hay and the residual odor of the family's daily life, sweat, smoke, and the soft, tangy scent of wool. This is normal. This is home. You stretch out, noting how different this is from the layered, controlled world of modern bedding. There are no spring-loaded frames, no pillow fluff, no temperature control. You lie down and your body conforms to the floor, adjusting naturally. Some historians argue that this simplicity might actually be healthier. Your spine aligns, your muscles adapt, and despite what you might think, your body learns to sleep in a grounded, earthy way. But of course there's a downside. The floor is cold, the straw is scratchy, and fleas are more than potential roommates, they're practically landlords. You close your eyes and remind yourself to breathe slowly, to relax, to embrace the rhythm of medieval night. The floor bed is versatile. In the morning you can sweep it, add fresh straw, or roll it up entirely for daily chores. At night, it becomes a nest, slightly elevated from the cold, hard earth, insulated by what you hope is clean straw. Many families place additional layers of cloth or old garments on top, especially for children, creating little islands of softness in an otherwise coarse world. You notice how practical this setup is. It's cheap, easy to maintain, and remarkably resilient. Your bed literally is as stable as your life's routine. Unlike modern people who change mattresses every few years, medieval people might sleep on the same straw pallet for decades, adjusting, patching, and repairing it as life goes on. You hear the faint sound of livestock shuffling in the other room. In many households, animals weren't banished to distant barns. A cow, goat, or pig might be sharing the same space as you, not out of affection but for warmth. You can almost feel the heat radiating from them through the thin floor, a cozy reminder of the practical ingenuity of medieval life. Yes, your bed is sometimes slightly mobile. Occasionally, a chicken or two might wander across the straw. This is life. This is adaptation. The bed's simplicity belies its significance. The straw pallet supports your sleep, anchors your dreams, and forms the physical foundation of your nocturnal existence. It's easy to underestimate such an arrangement if you're accustomed to the plush luxuries of modern mattresses, but there's a reason it persisted. It worked. You notice how your body gradually conforms to the subtle dips and rises, how the straw compresses in familiar patterns. By the time you've settled, the pallet feels like an extension of yourself, a silent partner in your night. Some nights the smell might be overwhelming. Fleas, lice, and the occasional mouse leave their trace. You swat away a tiny intruder and remind yourself, this is normal, this is life, this is medieval living. And yet, even with these imperfections, you find a surprising comfort. There's a rhythm, a continuity that modern beds often lack. You are literally sleeping where your parents, your grandparents, and possibly their ancestors slept, in a line of simple, practical survival. You lie there thinking about the paradox of the medieval bed. On the one hand, it is scrappy, utilitarian, and scratchy. On the other, it is intimate, consistent, and deeply functional. Modern people pay hundreds of dollars for memory foam, but centuries ago, a few bundles of straw, laid on the floor and rotated as needed, provided warmth, cushioning, and a stable place to recharge. You notice how your muscles relax into the uneven contours, how your body begins to sync with the gentle rise and fall of breathing, not just your own but the household's. A child snoring softly, a cat stretching across the corner, the faint creak of a sibling shifting. It is a living, breathing ecosystem. Your mind drifts. You imagine sitting beside your pallet in daylight, rolling out fresh straw, tucking in a child, adjusting the cloth covers. You think about the ingenuity, how your ancestors devised a sleep system without springs, electricity, or memory foam. You are part of this continuum, lying on a floor bed that is somehow more stable, more grounded, more yours, than any hotel suite could ever offer. The straw supports your body, the floor supports the straw, and together they support the rhythm of your life. You think about hygiene for a moment. Modern sleepers might cringe, but people of the Middle Ages adapted. Fresh straw was rotated, herbs sprinkled in, and clothing doubled as blankets. Fleas, lice, and mites were part of life, not exceptions. You might wriggle a bit, swat at an itchy spot, but then settle back, letting your body sink into the familiar contours. This intimacy with the earth, with the materials of daily life, gives you a strange sense of calm. You stretch your arms, feeling the floor beneath your back, the straw cushioning unevenly yet reliably. The texture is rough, yes, but it grounds you, connecting you to centuries of human experience. Imagine lying here night after night, as your parents did, as their parents did, learning to embrace imperfection, to find warmth and rhythm in the simplest of arrangements. The floor is no longer just a floor. It is a bed, a sanctuary, a classroom in endurance and adaptation. At some point your mind drifts further. You imagine stories whispered on similar straw pallets, children reciting prayers, parents singing lullabies, the occasional curse muttered at a restless animal. The pallet supports life in its most raw, honest form. It is uncomfortable by modern standards, yes, but it is faithful, durable, and surprisingly accommodating. And when you finally surrender to sleep, you feel the history, the continuity, and the quiet humor of surviving and thriving on the simplest of foundations. Scholars are still debating whether these floor beds were primarily a matter of necessity or comfort, and how much social class influenced access to alternative sleeping arrangements. Your eyelids grow heavy. You hear the faint night sounds of the household, the low murmur of conversations, a child shifting in the corner, the occasional animal sniffing for warmth. Your body sinks further into the straw, aligning with the rhythm of human life around you. The floor beneath you no longer feels hard. It feels supportive, familiar, unassuming. It is the stage on which countless nights of medieval life have played out, and now it is your stage. You let yourself drift, imagining generations of humans who have lain here before you, their dreams and rest imprinted subtly in the straw, in the floor, in the air itself. You inhale deeply, letting the coarse texture cradle your body, the faint scent of hay and herbs soothe your senses, and the gentle creaking of the house sing a lullaby. Sleep comes slowly but surely, wrapping you in a continuity that stretches across centuries. The floor, once just dirt and stone, has become a cradle, a haven, a bridge between survival and comfort. It's a paradox, rough, scratchy, imperfect, and yet perfectly suited to human need. You drift further into dreams, the floor supporting your body, the straw supporting your sleep, and your mind embracing the rhythm of a medieval night. You are grounded, literally and figuratively, in a world that values simplicity, warmth, and practical ingenuity. Hey you, yes, you who are sinking into that straw bed after a day of labor, of errands, of wandering through streets that smell faintly of smoke, livestock, and yesterday's market. Tonight, we turn our attention upward, not to the stars, though they peek through the gaps in your roof, not to your mind, though it drifts with the day's worries, but to your head. Specifically, the little piece of cloth you pull snugly over it, the nightcap. And no, this isn't a fancy cocktail. It's a woolly, sometimes embroidered, often rather pointy piece of medieval ingenuity, designed for one very simple purpose: to help you survive the night. You tug the nightcap down over your ears, adjusting the folds, tucking a stray lock of hair beneath it. Immediately you notice the difference: warmth. The cold that creeps from the rough walls and dirt floor is held at bay, a gentle barrier against frostbite and chills. Unlike your modern bedroom with central heating and fluffy pillows, medieval buildings, stone and timber constructions rarely insulated, were infamous for being icy at night. A nightcap wasn't a fashion statement, it was a lifeline. The nightcap covers more than just warmth. Some are long and pointed, the tip hanging lazily over your shoulder, almost like a medieval wizard's hat for sleep. Others are shorter, snug, almost helmet-like. They are crafted from wool or linen, often with subtle embroidery along the seams. For some, these tiny embellishments aren't merely decorative, they signal status. Perhaps the bright stitching shows that your family is reasonably well off, or the muted tones indicate a married woman, dutifully observing custom even in the privacy of her chamber. In the dim glow of candlelight, these little details matter less for beauty and more for social codification, a way the world communicates silently even to itself in the night. As you settle beneath your thin blanket, you notice the sleeping robe, a long loose garment often drawn tightly at the waist. It hangs around you like a protective shell, softening the roughness of your clothing against your skin. Together, nightcap and robe form an ensemble you wear every night, a combination of comfort, warmth, and ritual. It might sound absurd now, like a medieval onesie for survival, but trust me, this was the very peak of nighttime sophistication. Now, think about the cold that creeps into your body if you don't take these measures. Without your woolly hat, the chill penetrates your skull, your ears, your sinuses, sometimes making your teeth chatter in sympathy with the midnight air. Doctors of the time, whose understanding of physiology might now make you giggle, actually recommended covering your head, believing that heat loss there could influence your overall health. They suggested that sleeping with a cold head could weaken the body, invite illness, or even disturb humors. Modern science might raise an eyebrow at the specifics, but there is some truth. Keeping your head warm can improve comfort and possibly reduce restlessness. Scholars, however, are still debating how effective these measures were in preventing disease or promoting actual sleep quality. You tug the nightcap a little lower, adjusting it over your ears, and feel the straw beneath your body soften the floor. You're cocooned in layers: straw, blanket, sleeping robe, nightcap. You are as prepared as any human could be to face the chill of medieval night. Some nights, you notice the nightcap doing more than just keeping you warm. It becomes a ritual, a signal to your mind that it is time to relax, to let the day go. Pulling it on, adjusting the folds, smoothing the seams, it is an act of intentional slowing, a kind of early mindfulness practice. You might chuckle at the absurdity. The same hat that prevents frostbite also trains your brain to say, "Enough. Rest now." There is a humorous side to this as well. Imagine a group of travelers crammed into a shared room, all of them adjusting their nightcaps like miniature pointy helmets. You glance around and see a merchant with a bright blue wool cap, a child with one that droops comically to the side, a cat sneaking beneath the blankets to steal warmth. It looks absurd in the soft candlelight, but it works. And in this cozy chaos, survival and comfort dance hand in hand. Beyond warmth and social signaling, nightcaps have a psychological component. Many medieval people were deeply concerned about what might happen to them in their sleep. Death, illness, nightmares, even spirits were considered active threats once the sun dipped below the horizon. By covering your head and tucking into layers, you are not just warding off cold, you are signaling to your mind that you are protected, that you have taken steps to face the night safely. A nightcap is your helmet, your shield, your silent reassurance that when you wake, you will wake alive. You adjust the cap again, this time noticing the embroidery patterns. Tiny loops of thread, floral motifs, subtle geometric shapes, each one possibly telling a story. Maybe it is a gift from a loved one, maybe a sign of wealth, maybe a marker of marital status. You lie there, fascinated by how something so small and practical can carry so much cultural weight. Scholars continue to debate the significance of these patterns. Were they purely ornamental, or did they serve as a coded language, visible only to those who knew how to read it? You pull the sleeping robe closer, feeling the combined warmth of robe and cap. There's a faint scent of wool and faint traces of herbs, perhaps tucked into the seams to repel pests. Fleas and lice were constant companions, But clever people knew how to use herbs like lavender, rosemary, or mint as a subtle deterrent. You breathe in the gentle aroma, imagining the centuries of human ingenuity packed into such a small, simple night ritual. As the hours stretch on, you think about the rhythm of medieval sleep. First sleep, middle wakefulness, second sleep. Your nightcap has been there for each stage, a silent guardian. It's not about indulgence or luxury, it's about pragmatism, survival, and rhythm. In the middle of the night, you might rise to pray, check the hearth, or simply ponder your day. Every movement, every action is cushioned by your layers. The cap, the robe, the blankets, the straw beneath. You settle back down, imagining the countless humans who have done exactly this before you. A monk in a stone abbey, a farmer in a thatched cottage, a traveling merchant in a crowded inn, they all tugged on their nightcaps, adjusted their robes, and prepared themselves for the chill and quiet of the night. It is a shared human experience spanning centuries, yet intimate, personal, and profoundly comforting. Finally, your body relaxes completely. The nightcap presses gently against your head, the robe drapes loosely over your limbs, and the straw bed supports you from below. You are insulated, protected, and part of a timeless ritual. Outside, the night winds might howl through the gaps in the walls, a faint, hollow sound. Inside, you are cocooned. The nightcap, humble and unassuming, has done its job. It is not fashion, not frivolity, not a luxury. It is survival, comfort, and ritual wrapped into one simple piece of cloth. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize how remarkable this all is. A piece of fabric, a simple hat, can do so much. Warm your head, signal status, repel pests, calm your mind, connect you to centuries of human experience. You close your eyes, feel the weight of the night, the warmth of the straw and robe, the gentle hug of the nightcap. Medieval humans knew the world differently, but in this one small act they were remarkably wise. Scholars still debate whether the nightcap truly improved health or was largely psychological, but one thing is clear. It was a cornerstone of nocturnal life, a silent ally in the medieval night. We step into a slightly heavier bedtime ritual. Not just blankets and wool, not just nightcaps and robes, but metal plates, leather straps, and the cold, unyielding weight of armor. Imagine this. You've trudged through muddy fields, clanked along cobblestones, dodged arrows in training, and finally, it is time to sleep. But sleep comes with a caveat. You are a soldier, a knight, a watchful protector of walls, castles, or wandering trade routes. And in this world, war does not knock politely at your door. So you climb into bed wearing what many would call a nightmare outfit for rest, half or even full armor. The first thing you notice is the weight. Not crushing but persistent, a gentle, constant pressure against your chest, shoulders, and legs. Each joint, each rivet, presses lightly into your skin through the padding beneath. You shift slightly, careful not to wake a chain of buckles or let a gauntlet slip uncomfortably. Modern sleepers might gasp at the thought of lying down encased in metal, but to you, tonight, this is practical, not punitive. The leather straps beneath the plates cushion some impact, and your arming doublet, thick, quilted, sometimes scented faintly with herbs to stave off mold and sweat, softens the edge of steel against your torso. You wiggle your fingers inside gauntlets, noticing how your hands are bound, yet free enough to adjust a belt or reposition a helmet. You might even use your helm as a pillow, tilting it just so to avoid a headache from a steel rim pressing against your forehead. It is not elegant, not comfortable, but it is survivable, and survival is the goal here. In your chamber, the arrangement of weapons and shields is meticulous. Your sword rests on the floor beside your bed, angled so you can reach it in a heartbeat. A dagger sits under the pillow, tucked safely but ready. If you need to defend yourself, if the enemy breaches the outer wall or a band of raiders strikes your inn, you will rise instantly, armor clanking, ready to respond. And yet, in these same moments, there is an odd comfort to it. You know your boundaries, your defenses. Your bed is both a resting place and a fortified position. You close your eyes for a moment and consider the odd ritual of putting on half an armor set just to sleep. The torso is protected, greaves cover your legs, gauntlets hug your hands, and sometimes, you even leave pauldrons or the breastplate slightly loosened so breathing feels natural. You have perfected this art over years. which pieces to wear, which to leave, how to shift so that the metal does not dig into bone. Each night, it becomes a quiet meditation, a pattern of straps, buckles, and mental rehearsal. A modern historian might raise an eyebrow at the notion, and indeed, scholars still debate whether soldiers truly benefited from sleeping in armor or if it was largely psychological, a confidence boost against sudden attack. But you, lying here, know it works in some way, at least for your mind. The sensory experience is remarkable. Steel against steel, leather against cloth, the faint smell of oil and rust in the air, the muffled clink of chainmail when you shift. The bed beneath you, a wooden pallet, a simple straw mattress, or perhaps a blanket atop a rough stone floor, adds a grounding texture. You can feel every surface, every contour. Even the cold of the metal is oddly reassuring. It reminds you of your purpose, your readiness, the line between life and danger just outside the door. Perhaps you were trained to sleep this way in a barracks. Rows of soldiers lie side by side, armor varying from nearly complete sets to partial coverage. The snoring is a mix of muffled breathing through visors and the occasional clank when someone adjusts a breastplate. You glance around. A comrade lies with helm askew, chainmail twisted slightly. A young squire has left his gauntlets at his sides, hands twitching in dreams of justs or past battles. You lie still, observing the quiet rhythms of human and metal, feeling a strange kinship in this metallic slumber. Some nights, especially during campaigns, you might sleep outdoors. The moon hangs low and you lie on blankets, dirt, or straw, armor protecting you against night chill and potential threats alike. Each clink of the wind through nearby trees, each distant howl or call, draws your attention to your preparedness. You are half asleep, yet ever alert. The sensation is not quite restful, not quite comfortable, but it is efficacious. You rest, but not completely, because your body knows that danger does not announce itself politely. You shift slightly and the leather beneath the plate creaks. Your sword, ever at hand, rests with the hilt angled perfectly for immediate grasp. You notice your helmet, carefully adjusted, slightly tilted so that it does not press uncomfortably against your brow. Even breathing is deliberate. The weight of the armor demands mindful inhalation and exhalation. There is a rhythm, a pattern, almost meditative, in coexisting with your armor while your body drifts toward rest. And yet there is humor in it too. You think of modern beds, memory foam, Egyptian cotton, adjustable frames, and laugh softly. Here you are, lying atop straw, wrapped in steel and leather, patting your head with your own helmet. The thought would be comical if it weren't so necessary. Medieval soldiers knew the stakes. Nighttime was never entirely safe. Sleep could be interrupted by alarm, by attack, by enemy spies, by simple human error. The armor mitigated some of that fear. Perhaps the most surprising comfort comes from ritualized adjustments. You gently tighten the straps on your torso, ensure that the greaves fit snugly but not too tightly, wiggle fingers in the gauntlets. Each motion is familiar, repeated nightly. Your body learns the balance between weight and flexibility. Your mind relaxes, knowing every buckle, every plate, every piece of padding has a purpose. The clinking is almost musical, the prelude to rest, the cadence of a world that demands vigilance yet allows peace. In this state, you contemplate the paradox of medieval armor sleep. You are protected and yet vulnerable, immobilized and yet ready. Scholars argue endlessly whether this truly enhanced survival odds or simply provided a psychological buffer against fear. You don't debate. You lie here in straw, metal, and leather and feel strangely secure. The cold seeps a little less, the nightmares feel a little weaker, and the world outside, the chaotic, dangerous world, seems slightly more manageable. You feel your breathing slow, the weight of steel pressing gently, the leather absorbing tension. You drift in and out of awareness, half sleeping, half vigilant. Every time you roll, there is a minor clatter, a reminder of presence, a grounding touch. You imagine soldiers of the past, in stone towers or wooden keeps, lying in rows, helmets resting askew, swords within reach. Across centuries, this practice repeats, an enduring testament to the human will to survive, prepare, and adapt. And finally, you sink fully into what sleep is possible. Your mind softens, the armor becomes part of your body, your senses attuned to the rhythm of night and companions, the distant sounds of the world, and the comforting, ever-present weight of protection. Here in straw, leather, and steel you find a unique rest. Not luxurious, not modern, but deeply medieval, profoundly practical, and quietly brave. Historians continue to debate whether sleeping in armor genuinely improved survival odds or was mainly a mental reassurance. But for you lying here tonight, the line between metal and sleep is where courage meets comfort. We dive into a reality that may make your modern notions of privacy shiver a little. Sleeping is never just yours. You've been wandering through the long, dark hours, chasing warmth, chasing comfort, chasing the promise of that elusive empty bed. And now finally you spot it, a straw mattress tucked in the corner, seemingly vacant. Relief washes over you. At last, a moment to stretch your limbs without negotiating with anyone else, or so you think. You tiptoe closer, lowering yourself onto the straw with careful grace. But then you notice movement, a shuffle, a tiny nudge, a whisk of fur. You glance up. There's your grandmother, already half settled, the corners of her quilt tucked under her chin. A child's small feet wiggle out from the blankets. And if that wasn't enough, the soft, warm shape of the family cat curls at the foot of the mattress. Somewhere near your elbow, a faint clucking warns you. A chicken, probably misplaced from the kitchen, has decided your bed is suitable for its nighttime roost. You shift slightly, careful not to dislodge anyone, or anything. In the modern bedroom, this scenario would be a nightmare. But in the medieval household, this is a standard night. Families did not, and often could not, have separate sleeping quarters. Space was scarce, wood and straw expensive, and privacy was a luxury reserved for nobility. Your bed isn't just a bed, it's a shared microcosm of survival, warmth, and social closeness. You lie back, feeling the subtle weight of each presence around you. Your grandmother's hand brushes lightly against your arm, the child's breathing stirs the blankets, and the cat purrs, a vibration you feel through your ribs. Even the chicken adjusts its tiny claws, providing a gentle tickle on the ankle. And oddly enough, all of this creates warmth. Human bodies generate heat, yes, but animals too add to the collective thermoregulation. Centuries before electric blankets, this was the most practical solution imaginable, a human-animal warmth matrix. Now think about the logistics. You are a part of a cohesive sleeping ecosystem. Every inch of straw is accounted for. The edges are reinforced by pillows or makeshift bundles of rags, while the center is reserved for the tallest family member, usually an adult. Children and small animals occupy the periphery, curling into each other's warmth like living thermal patches. You've learned subtle choreography over years of practice. Rolling without disturbing a sleeping elder, shifting legs without alerting a cat, sliding under a quilt while keeping the chicken intact. It's an intricate dance, a nightly ballet of coordination, respect, and survival. The practicalities extend beyond warmth. There is also safety. You notice, in your peripheral vision, that the grandmother is positioned near the doorway, alert even in sleep. A child curls close to the hearth end, easier to monitor. Animals, especially those that could alert the household to danger, a dog, a cat, even the chicken, are strategically placed. It may seem chaotic to a modern observer, but medieval families instinctively understood the security advantages of communal sleep. Being together was a moral and practical buffer against threats. Intruders, roaming wildlife, even perceived supernatural dangers. Scholars still debate whether this was mainly practical necessity or a socially enforced moral code, but for you lying here, both factors feel simultaneously present. You adjust slightly, accommodating the cat's purr and the chicken's quiet clucks. Every movement is calculated, part of a silent negotiation that occurs nightly. You notice the scent of mixed humanity and fur, the faint aroma of soap or herbs, the faint earthy tang of straw, the warmth of recently used blankets. It is not luxurious, but it is comforting in a way modern minimalism rarely replicates. Shared beds create a sensory network that binds family, animals, and sometimes neighbors into a single living, sleeping organism. Consider the night sounds. Somewhere the hearth's embers pop faintly. A distant owl hoots. A child sighs, turning slightly, nudging the grandmother's arm. The cat stretches, claws lightly scraping the straw. The chicken clucks softly, ruffling feathers. These noises, rather than disturbing sleep, become a rhythm, a lullaby of communal living. They mark time, provide reassurance, and create a subtle, unspoken awareness. You are not alone, you are safe, you are part of a structure that has existed for centuries. In some households, the bed might even include other creatures. A small dog tucked under a blanket, a piglet resting near the foot, perhaps a sheep curled along one side. These arrangements are not indulgent. They are practical, insulating the household against cold and, in some cases, pests. You might wrinkle your nose at the idea now, but in the medieval context, this was an effective system. Heat, protection, and community were bundled together, forming a living quilt of interdependence. You reach for a small bundle of blankets to create personal space, a micro-boundary between your torso and the grandmother's elbow. The child nudges closer, unconsciously seeking warmth. You realize this nightly negotiation is a lesson in tolerance, subtlety, and human connection. Shared beds teach patience, spatial awareness, and an uncanny ability to adapt. The presence of animals, moreover, adds a layer of constant, low-level amusement. Furry paws, twitching tails, and chicken claws occasionally testing your reflexes. And yet, there is also a meditative quality. You close your eyes briefly, feeling each warm body, each gentle twitch, each soft purr. There is a sense of belonging, a sense of continuity, a comforting assurance that, despite the chaos of the outside world, storms, raiders, famine, inside this bundle of straw and limbs, order exists. Scholars still debate whether communal sleep was morally motivated, economically necessary, or biologically advantageous, but lying here, it feels like all three folded together with gentle precision. As the hours stretch on, you notice the collective breathing. Shallow, deep, uneven, rhythmic, like a symphony of rest. Each organism, human or animal, contributes to ambient warmth, creating microclimates across the straw. You shift minimally, not to disturb the grandmother, the child, the cat, or the chicken. Every tiny adjustment has consequences, but you have become adept at the art of shared occupancy. This is a skill passed down, learned over time, not written in books but in bodies and instincts. Your thoughts drift. Imagine centuries of humans performing the same nightly ballet. Rolling, nudging, accommodating, adjusting, breathing, warming, protecting. Generations have curated this strange, intimate architecture of sleep, merging bodies, lives, and warmth into a single cohesive living unit. The smells, the textures, the soft murmurs of humans and animals alike, all merge into a lullaby more potent than any composed melody. You feel the mattress depress slightly under your weight, the grandmother shifts a little, the child sighs again, the cat stretches and settles. Somewhere nearby, a chicken huffs softly. This is your medieval bed, messy, crowded, warm, and oddly perfect. The rhythm of breath and body slowly carries you toward deeper rest, bridging generations, species, and survival instincts. And finally, as sleep envelopes you, the warmth of community wraps around your consciousness. You are part of a living, breathing, sleeping network, and this network, chaotic as it seems, is the oldest, most reliable comfort known to humanity. Scholars remain divided on whether shared sleeping was primarily practical, moral, or thermal, but tonight, surrounded by humans and animals alike, the answer feels simple. It just works. We wander into the hazy, wobbly world between sleep and divine insight, where your subconscious decides to stage the most curious performances. You close your eyes, lying on your straw mattress, or perhaps a shared bed with relatives, animals, and maybe the occasional wandering chicken, and drift into the realm of dreams. Here, the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, and what seems silly, nonsensical, or downright absurd might just carry heavenly messages. Imagine it. In the dim moonlight filtering through a narrow window, you find yourself strolling through a landscape of gigantic rolling wheels of cheese. They wobble and squeak, each one the size of a cart, stacked like precarious towers in a village square that looks oddly familiar, yet impossible. You laugh because obviously a dream about cheese cannot be serious, but in the medieval mindset this could mean something entirely different. Cheese, after all, is no ordinary food. It is wealth, sustenance, and sometimes indulgence. Your mind's playful antics are already tipping into moral territory. You try to move closer, perhaps to slice a piece or touch it, but a figure appears. A monk in a brown robe, staff in hand, eyebrows knitted. This is the abbot, the spiritual authority of your monastery, and in dreams he is never amused. "Repent," he intones, his voice echoing through the cheesy expanse, slightly muffled as if filtered through a cloud of smoke or incense. You are caught between delight and dread, because now your amusement feels like sin, a moral misstep recorded by invisible heavenly auditors. Medieval people approached dreams not casually. Dreams were considered portents, divine messages, or moral guidance. The abbot's presence is entirely appropriate. You might be interpreting an everyday symbol like cheese incorrectly, or worse, frivolously. Dreams were carefully recorded, analyzed, and even shared with spiritual mentors. Monks, nuns, and devout laypeople kept dream logs, sometimes with elaborate annotations. The date, the context, who was present, and the perceived significance of each symbol. You find yourself floating above the cheese now, a mixture of fear and fascination holding you suspended. The wheels rotate slowly, squeaking in rhythm, as if the entire universe is a lactose-based metronome. You know that every element in your dream, this cheese, your flight, the abbot's stern gaze, might carry meaning. Maybe the cheese represents unacknowledged indulgence or wealth, perhaps a sign that you are too focused on material comfort rather than spiritual virtue. Scholars still debate whether medieval interpretations of dreams were purely symbolic or whether they reflected genuine spiritual belief, but lying here tonight, you feel the weight of moral consequence pressing softly, like a feathered hand on your chest. The dream morphs. The cheese expands into a mountain, and suddenly, you are climbing it, feet sinking slightly into the soft, pungent surface. You notice the texture, both sticky and resilient, strangely warm, like dough that has risen overnight. The abbot follows, silent now, only his gaze piercing through the cheese mist. You try to keep your balance, hands gripping invisible ropes or imaginary railings, feeling the subtle pull of gravity on your dream body. In the real world, you lie still on straw, feeling its uneven comfort beneath you, the warmth of shared beds, the quiet purr of animals. In the dream, every sensation is amplified, exaggerated, moralized. You remember that in the Middle Ages, dreams were sometimes categorized. Ordinary dreams, prophetic dreams, and night visions. Some dreams were seen as messages from God, saints, or angels. Others were warnings of spiritual weakness or sinful tendencies. And yes, sometimes they were considered temptations from the devil. The cheese might be mundane, or it might be a test of your moral vigilance. The abbot's insistence on repentance reminds you that even humor could be dangerous in the dream world, especially if misinterpreted. You descend the cheese mountain cautiously, your hands brushing against sticky edges, noting how your toes leave faint impressions that vanish almost immediately. Somewhere along the way the abbot mutters, "Confess your sins," and you realize that every trivial action in your dream is under scrutiny. The cheese, which initially seemed a source of delight, has now become a canvas for spiritual reflection. You pause, trying to reconcile your laughter with the implied moral. In the straw beneath your back, you shift slightly, careful not to wake the grandmother, the child, the cat, or the chicken sharing your bed. Their warmth anchors you, a subtle reminder of reality, a grounding force against the swirling dreamscape. And yet, the dream persists, bending, stretching, amplifying mundane details into allegories. You notice that even seemingly absurd dreams, cheese mountains, flying abbots, talking animals, were treated with serious contemplation in medieval thought. You float above a river now, a stream of milk and whey meandering lazily between hills of cheese. The abbot remains, stationary yet somehow omnipresent, observing, judging, guiding. You are tempted to sip from the river, but immediately the thought of indulgence invokes guilt. You remember, prayers before sleep, confessions, moral rectitude, these rituals were intertwined with nightly dreams. Dreaming was not just recreation, it was a spiritual exercise. To dream lightly was to risk divine rebuke, and so, even in playfulness, caution colors your imagination. Then, unexpectedly, the dream shifts again. The cheese dissolves into clouds, soft and milky, carrying the faint scent of butter and aged whey. You float higher, feeling the abbot's gaze lessen in intensity, almost approvingly. Maybe the moral lesson has been internalized, a balance of delight and reflection. You notice the subtle humor of your subconscious, turning mundane dairy into epic landscapes, and you laugh softly, careful, still mindful of your ethereal auditor. In reality, your body feels the straw beneath you, animals nearby, warmth and life pressing gently into your consciousness. Dreams, medieval scholars noted, often reflected spiritual states, daily activities, and emotional preoccupations. Your cheese mountain, your abbot, your careful steps. They are a collage of everything you have experienced, thought, or feared. Historians still debate whether these interpretations truly reveal divine messages or are simply projections of subconscious anxiety. You do not argue. You float, drift, and consider. Perhaps that is the point, to allow reflection, guidance, and gentle moral nudges while your body rests. The dream softens, the cheese clouds dissipate, the abbot smiles faintly, or maybe it is just your mind interpreting. You find yourself back in your straw bed, the warmth of family and animals pressing gently. The moral weight eases, replaced by comfort, continuity, and the shared rhythm of breathing around you. The milk, the cheese, the flight, the confession, they all fade into the half-conscious haze between dream and reality. And in this haze you sense a profound truth. Sleep and dreams were tools, guidance, and protection, long before modern science could explain the functions of REM cycles or subconscious processing. Finally, you drift fully into sleep, the abbot's voice now a soft echo, the cheese mountains reduced to gentle mounds of memory. Your limbs relax, the straw supports you, the cat kneads gently at your side, and the chicken has found a more comfortable nook. Here, in warmth, shared space, and moral reflection, you feel safe, observed, and guided, a medieval sleeper navigating dreams with both humor and reverence. Scholars continue to debate whether dreams were genuinely divine messages or merely psychological reflections of daily life. But tonight, with cheese clouds fading and the abbot's gaze softened, the distinction feels unimportant. Sleep has returned, and with it, gentle rest. We are going to explore a humble yet surprisingly versatile object, or rather, the absence of one. You've scanned your medieval sleeping space, lying atop a straw mattress that has become a warm, uneven canvas for shared bodies and restless animals, and it hits you, there's no pillow. Not a single soft, supportive cushion to cradle your weary head. This is not an oversight, it's the reality of middle-class or even slightly affluent medieval sleeping arrangements. So, before you get too comfortable, take a deep breath and accept your fate. Because in this bed, a pillow is a luxury. Some noble households may have stuffed linen or feathers tucked in silken cases, but for the majority your head rests on straw rolled-up clothing or, if you're lucky, a small bundle of rags that vaguely resembles a pillow. Tonight it's going to be something else. Your shield, polished and firm, becomes your impromptu headrest. You lift the shield cautiously, feeling its weight and solidity. It's cold to the touch, unlike a pillow which would mold to your head and shoulders. But medieval life is not about comfort. It's about adaptation. Leaning your head against the metal, you notice a subtle hum of warmth from your body, the neighboring child, and the cat pressing lightly against your side. Somehow this makes the hard metallic surface feel less alien. You adjust, balancing, finding the right angle, and slowly the shield becomes your support, surprisingly accommodating in its own rigid way. Medieval sleeping arrangements were often Spartan. Bed frames, if they existed at all, supported straw mattresses. Bed linens were rare, and pillows were neither standardized nor widespread. In noble households, pillows might be decorated with embroidery or filled with feathers, but for most, a pillow was a luxury item. And tonight, you are firmly in the make-do category. Scholars still debate whether the absence of pillows affected sleep quality, but your body seems to adapt remarkably quickly when surrounded by warmth and presence. Your neighbors, the grandmother, child, cat, and even a wandering chicken, adjust subtly to accommodate your new headrest. Every movement is part of the silent choreography of shared beds. You find that leaning on your shield allows for micro-adjustments. The angles of the metal edge, the slight give in the strap, and the faint cushioning of the air trapped between layers all combine to form an unexpectedly serviceable pillow. You almost chuckle at the ingenuity, remembering that some soldiers during wartime slept this way intentionally. armor and shields at hand for sudden defense, comfort a secondary consideration. As your head settles, you notice the faint sense around you, the cold metal of the shield mingling with the straw beneath, the faint perfume of lavender or herbs from other family members, and the subtle warmth of the cat curled near your shoulder. These sensory layers create an ambience of both vigilance and relaxation, reminding you that comfort is relative. In the modern era, a pillow is a tool for ergonomics, neck support, and sleep hygiene. Here, it is a multifunctional object capable of serving as protection, warmth, and now, surprisingly, a pillow. You shift slightly, careful not to disturb the grandmother, the child, or the cat. Even the chicken flutters softly, repositioning itself without waking anyone. This intricate dance highlights the medieval mastery of spatial awareness and negotiation in sleep. Every inch of space is utilized, every object repurposed, every movement calculated to avoid conflict or discomfort. Your shield, once a tool of warfare, becomes a linchpin in this nightly arrangement, illustrating the improvisational nature of human adaptation. Historically, people were not strangers to using objects other than pillows for sleeping. Bundles of clothing, sacks of grain, or folded blankets were common substitutes. Soldiers sometimes slept with parts of their armor or weapons nearby, ready for sudden threats, using whatever was available to support their heads. It's a practical approach, blending functionality and survival in a way that modern convenience rarely demands. You reflect on this, feeling a subtle pride in your own improvised comfort, even as you lie in relative sprawl on the straw mattress. Your thoughts wander to the nature of medieval comfort. A soft pillow, rich linens, and feather stuffing were rare. Most of society accepted firm, uneven surfaces as standard. Sleep itself was considered restorative, spiritual, and socially significant, more than merely a personal indulgence. The body's alignment and physical comfort were secondary to communal warmth, moral security, and protection. You realize that the rigid shield as pillow embodies this philosophy perfectly. It is functional, adaptable, protective, and communal, and it requires your imagination to convert it into comfort. You feel the shield slightly shift beneath your head as you breathe, its strap pressing gently against your neck. It's not perfect, but it's effective. The grandmother murmurs softly in her sleep, perhaps dreaming of prayers or mundane tasks. The child sighs, adjusting in response to your subtle movement. The cat kneads the straw gently, creating a rhythmic accompaniment to your own breathing. And the chicken clucks faintly, nestled against the edge of the bed. You notice how objects and bodies together create a symphony of tactile and auditory cues, a network that guides movement, comfort, and even moral reassurance throughout the night. You shift your weight again, rotating slightly to relieve tension in your shoulders. The shield bears the brunt of your head's movement, and surprisingly, its flat surface distributes pressure well. You wonder whether medieval soldiers experienced the same subtle relief. Perhaps this is why some insisted on sleeping partially armored or with their shields nearby, not just for defense but for physical support, multifunctionality, and warmth. You smile faintly, imagining the irony. Objects designed for survival in battle doubling as objects of comfort, teaching you resilience in the quietest hours. Sleep deepens slowly. The warmth of nearby bodies, the hum of breathing, the weight of the shield under your head, all merge into a calm rhythm. You drift between consciousness and dream, feeling the gentle sway of shared presence, the odd comfort of metallic support, and the intricate choreography that surrounds you. Every twitch of an elbow, flick of a tail, or shuffle of a blanket is accounted for in the subconscious negotiation of rest. You begin to appreciate the subtle engineering of communal survival embedded in this nightly routine. Historically, the absence of pillows and luxurious bedding might seem uncomfortable, even harsh to modern eyes. But in this context, sleep is functional, communal, and resilient. Objects are repurposed, bodies adapt, and the collective presence provides psychological and thermal security. Scholars still debate whether these improvisations truly enhance sleep quality or merely mask the limitations of material culture. But lying here, you feel a profound sense of adaptation, ingenuity, and quiet contentment. You notice that, in spite of the rigidity beneath your head, the shield offers a certain mindful focus. You pay attention to your posture, the rhythm of your breathing, the gentle warmth of the bodies around you. Even the cat's soft kneading and the chicken's occasional cluck become guiding cues, a subtle network of environmental feedback. You realize that medieval sleepers too relied on such cues, watching animals, adjusting for warmth, negotiating space, and using available objects creatively. This is sleep as both art and necessity, a collaborative, adaptive process extending across species, generations, and objects. Finally, your eyelids grow heavy. The shield has settled comfortably beneath your head. The straw provides a yielding foundation. The grandmother, child, and animals are in harmony around you. Outside, the moon drifts behind clouds, a pale sentinel over the sleeping household. Your mind softens, drifting between awareness and rest, between the functional ingenuity of medieval life and the gentle acceptance of shared space. Scholars remain divided on whether the lack of pillows compromised medieval sleep quality, but tonight, balanced on a shield, surrounded by warmth and companionship, you feel surprisingly well rested, cradled by creativity, adaptation, and centuries of human ingenuity. You were warned, of course. Everyone knows the straw mattress isn't really a mattress. It's more like a nest woven by desperation and cow spit, filled with brittle barley stalks and half-forgotten hay. You'd like to believe it was stuffed fresh sometime in the last 6 months, but then again you'd also like to believe you won't wake up with your ankles covered in bites. Tonight, like every night, you slide into your sleep space with the grace of someone dodging imaginary rats. And maybe they aren't imaginary. Your shoulders brush the wall, rough, cold stone. The bedding shifts under you like a sack of protesting birds. You flatten the pile best you can, but there's a suspiciously soft patch where something either died or never left. Still, you're too tired to care. Sort of. Until you feel it. That unmistakable, night-ruining sensation. Crawl. Scratch. Pause. Repeat. There it is. The night has officially begun. You throw off your scratchy wool blanket, just a thin layer of old cloth too scared to call itself linen, and sit up, groaning louder than you intended. Your bunkmate grumbles. You whisper sorry. It's not their fault. It's the fleas. They're not shy, these fleas. They're not one to nibble politely and retreat. No, they feast. In parades. A medieval conga line of bites along your forearms, your thighs, behind your knees. And let's not even mention the scalp. That place. A war zone. Everyone's got them. The Lord's got them. The monks have them. The tanner down the street has them and probably deserves it. You do what you can to fight back, but you know it's a losing battle. Still, tradition is tradition, and that means herbs, smoke, garlic, ritual. Earlier this evening, before the sky lost its color, you performed the nightly rite of cleansing. Not with soap, goodness no, that's for festival days. You cleansed your room. With rosemary and smoke. The rosemary was dried weeks ago, collected from the little herb patch behind the chicken coop, tied with flax thread, and hung above the hearth until it turned brittle and dark green. You lit one end over a stub of candle. It sputtered, sparked, then bloomed into fragrant white smoke. You walked slowly around your sleeping corner, waving the bundle like a priest with incense. You muttered a few choice words. Some were prayers. Others were suggestions. To the fleas. To the bedbugs. To the lice. You know they don't speak Latin, but you said it anyway. I will find you. And I will burn your eggs. Next came the garlic. 6 cloves, no more, no less, peeled and placed reverently at the 4 corners of your sleeping space, plus one under your chin and one above your head. What? Because some old woman with no teeth and 5 cats once told you that's how you confuse the demons. And possibly the fleas. Then came the wormwood sachet. You stuff it into the hem of your tunic near your armpit. It smells like licorice and revenge. You're not sure if it works. Some nights you wake up with fewer bites. Other nights you dream of large insects whispering in Latin. Either way, it's a comfort. Let's not forget the holy ash. A pinch from the hearth, mixed with crushed sage and thyme, sprinkled lightly across the pillow, well, the folded tunic you use as a pillow. The ash is believed to dissuade not only bugs but also spirits of unwashed souls. You suspect the unwashed souls are mostly the neighbors. In wealthier homes, they might have linen covers with herbal embroidery, lavender, tansy, hyssop. But in your little corner of the world, herbs are more functional than decorative. You once heard a story about a merchant who traveled with a full cedar box of anti-lice powder, imported all the way from Venice. Apparently it smelled like lemons and justice. You've never met a lemon. But it sounds powerful. Still, no matter how much you smoke, sprinkle, rub, or chant, they always return. It's like they wait for the candle to go out. They gather. They hold meetings. They say, "All right boys, she's finally asleep. Let's get behind the knee." You can almost hear them laughing. Your cousin, who lives 3 villages away, swears by a different method. He sleeps atop a thin sheet of onion skins, because he read somewhere that fleas hate sulfur. This has made him unbearably single and slightly fragrant, but he insists it works. You tried it once. The dreams were weird. The smell never left your blanket. In town, some people use bed curtains soaked in vinegar. Others soak their hair in beer and rosemary water, which only seems to encourage the lice to throw better parties. You even knew a woman who wore a pouch of crushed cloves around her neck. She smelled like Christmas and failure. There's also the folk belief that iron repels crawling things. Some folks sleep with a dagger under their pillow, not for safety but for cleanliness. You tried that. You rolled onto it. Bad idea. You scratch again. You sigh. You consider moving to the floor, but that would only be trading straw for dirt and spiders. Not better. You glance at the fire in the corner. It's barely glowing now. The smoke has faded. The rosemary is a heap of gray ash in its little bowl. You could light another bundle. But that would mean getting up. And moving. And possibly waking the cat. The cat has its own job, you know. Beyond warmth and judgment, it is also unofficial vermin control. Mice and rats don't dare enter your sleeping zone when the cat is curled at your feet. Which is lovely, until you realize the cat doesn't do bugs. Useless little king. You scratch your arm absent-mindedly and look at the red dots forming. Some are fresh. Others are old friends. The ones on your neck? Veterans. They've been with you since Lent. You reach for the final weapon in your arsenal, muttering bitterly in the dark. It doesn't repel bugs. But it helps. You start thinking about that rumor from the next town over. Supposedly, there's a noble family with a lice servant. A young boy tasked solely with delousing the Lord's clothing and bedding each morning. It's said they pay him in barley bread and mild curses. You wonder how that career path begins. Perhaps there's a guild. You're drifting now. Not into sleep exactly. Into something else. That middle ground between acceptance and resignation. You've done what you could. The smoke. The garlic. The ash. The sachets. The smudging. The swearing. And now, like every night, you hope. You hope the fleas will be tired tonight. That the lice have taken the evening off. That maybe, just maybe, the herbal gods will show mercy to a peasant who's done her best with mint leaves and fire. Historians today still debate the actual effectiveness of medieval pest control methods. Some suggest the rosemary and wormwood smoke may have reduced local bug populations temporarily. Others argue it was mostly a placebo with a nice smell. After all, how do you measure victory when your baseline is being slightly less itchy than the night before? But you don't need a study. You just need 5 consecutive hours without bleeding. So you lie back. You shift. You adjust your blanket so your toes aren't exposed, prime target for biters. You blow out the candle stub. You whisper something unkind about lice. And you surrender. Not in defeat. In trust. In the hope that smoke and herbs and spite might be enough. Somewhere nearby, another sleeper coughs. Someone turns. The cat flicks its tail. You close your eyes. You think tomorrow you'll try adding juniper berries to the mix. You heard those were strong. Or maybe you'll find a lemon. A single, bright, impossible lemon. And you'll sleep like royalty. You never thought you'd miss lying down. Tonight, your back is pressed against a wall that's cold enough to whisper insults through your spine. Your legs are folded or perhaps tangled beneath you. Your arms are wrapped around your knees like you're trying to become smaller, less awake, less vertical. Because tonight you're not allowed to lie down. It's not that there isn't space. It's not that the straw mattress is missing. It's that someone, somewhere, maybe a monk, maybe your great aunt, maybe Saint Benedict himself, decided that sleeping flat like a corpse is just asking to become one. And so here you are, sitting, slouching, drifting in and out of consciousness like a particularly shy owl. This isn't punishment. At least that's what they say. It's discipline. Or maybe it's devotion. But from where you're sitting, literally, it just feels like a cramp with moral justification. Let's be clear, this wasn't your idea. Earlier today, during Vespers, the old monk with a voice like gravel said something about preserving the soul's vigilance through the body's discomfort. You nodded like everyone else. You even whispered, "Amen." You just didn't think it meant you'd be turning yourself into a human question mark for 6 hours. Apparently, in some corners of the spiritual world, sleeping comfortably is suspicious. It's indulgent. It's sloth. It's the body trying to sneak in pleasure when the soul's supposed to be doing push-ups. So here you are, sleeping like a punished teenager on a pilgrimage, leaning against the choir stalls, wearing your roughest tunic, your belt slightly too tight to remind you not to sin. It's not just the monks. Weirdly enough, some noblemen insist on the same thing. In fact, you've heard of a count who had a bed so narrow and steeply tilted it could barely support a cat, let alone his entire well-stuffed ego. Why? Because he believed a hard night made a strong mind. And in a twisted way, he wasn't wrong. When you spend your nights half sleeping, half praying, half questioning your choices, it does train something in you. Patience. Or back pain. Possibly both. To be fair, there's a reason behind all this sitting nonsense. In the medieval world, sleep is a risky business. People die in their sleep. Not occasionally, frequently. In a time without antibiotics or decent insulation, going to bed could feel like an act of faith. And lying flat? That was exactly how the dead were laid out. Arms at sides, eyes closed, body still. The belief goes, if you sleep like the dead, the reaper might not realize you're pretending. He might say, "Ah, excellent, another one ready," and just take you. Better to be upright, or leaning, or bent. At least then you look busy. You try shifting your weight a bit. The wall behind you is stone, yes, but not smooth. It presses into your shoulder blades like a very cold, very judgmental teacher. Your legs are starting to tingle in that soon-to-be paralyzed kind of way. Your neck? Already regretful. You let your eyes close just for a moment. Your head slumps. You jolt awake. Classic. It's the sleep-sit-snap maneuver. So elegant. So painful. You tell yourself this is good for your soul. You tell yourself your ancestors probably did this all the time. You tell yourself a lot of things when you're this tired. In some stricter monastic orders, they went even further. Beds. Not a thing. Instead, wooden benches. Or stone ledges. Some monasteries enforced sitting sleep every night. Monks were expected to doze in their robes, seated in rows, like well-behaved owls. Pillows? Absolutely not. Blankets? Only if it's snowing, indoors. You've read about one particularly intense order where the brothers took turns staying awake to ensure nobody dared recline. Imagine that, being spiritually surveilled by someone half asleep in the name of holiness. But monks weren't the only ones. Some medieval physicians believed that sleeping upright aided digestion and balanced the body's humors. The idea was that lying down would let the black bile creep into the head, causing nightmares, melancholy, or worse, spontaneous sinning. Sitting, on the other hand, kept your organs aligned and your soul pointed heavenward. Also, it reduced the risk of bed ghosts. Yes, that's a thing. Spirits were believed to haunt beds. Specifically the soft, comfortable ones. The kind that invite indulgence. The kind you're not allowed to use. You try looping your arms over your knees again. You rest your head down gently. You hear someone snore a few feet away, not you, lucky soul. The candle flickers. A rat skitters past, minding its own business. You'd almost envy it if not for the plague thing. But you're holding up. Your eyes are heavy, yes. Your spine is one big regret. But your soul? Alert. Awake. Floating somewhere above your aching tailbone. Some travelers, too, sleep like this by necessity. Imagine you're a merchant on the road. No inns. No straw bed. No safety. You pull your cloak tight around you, lean back against your cartwheel, and doze. You don't trust the woods. You don't trust the innkeeper. You trust the wall behind you and the dagger under your cloak. Sleeping while sitting becomes a habit, a skill, a way to avoid being robbed, stabbed, or sold your own donkey at sunrise. And yet, not all cultures agreed. In warmer regions, people preferred open courtyards and soft bedding. In royal circles, being able to sleep flat meant you had servants to watch over you. Lying down was a privilege. It showed trust in your environment. But not here. Not tonight. Tonight, you are one creaky breath away from enlightenment, or a neck cramp so severe it becomes spiritual. Academics today still debate the motivations behind medieval sitting sleep. Some argue it was deeply spiritual, a symbol of humility and readiness. Others point to practical reasons: cold floors, overcrowded dormitories, bad architecture. Some say it was just another way to punish the body into behaving, like eating plain bread or avoiding butter on Sundays. The truth, as usual, is probably all of the above. But as someone currently drooling into your own sleeve while leaning against a church wall, you can confidently say, whatever the reason, it's not comfortable. You shift again. The wall sighs. Or maybe it's your joints. You wonder if sitting sleep will become a habit. If one day you'll lie down and feel guilty. If comfort will become suspicious. Maybe you'll get so used to it you'll fall asleep in church pews or while riding a donkey or during long meals. You'll join the secret guild of medieval upright sleepers, who know all the best ways to tuck a tunic for lumbar support. Or maybe you'll just give up and build yourself a decent bed out of hay and stolen pillows. For now, though, you breathe slowly. The candle burns lower. The stars drift quietly behind the frost-covered window. You close your eyes again, gently this time. You dream, not of fields or saints, but of horizontal luxury. A flat bed. A warm blanket. A pillow the size of your self-worth. One day you whisper to yourself. One day you'll lie down. And maybe you'll wake up. Or maybe you'll just float there, finally, between worlds, no longer sitting. No longer aching. Just sleeping. You walk through the cloistered corridors of the monastery, the stone walls cold beneath your fingertips. The air smells faintly of candle wax and dried herbs, with a trace of mildew that seems to seep from the walls themselves. You are fully aware that tonight your sleep will not be private, nor entirely peaceful. Here, in this vast communal dormitory, silence is sacred. And yet, the sacred silence is punctuated by an unexpected symphony, the snoring of monks. It's a chorus of nasal vibrations, a carefully orchestrated hum that rises and falls like the tide. Each snore seems to claim its own space, yet merges into a rolling wave of sound that you cannot escape. You take a tentative seat on the edge of a straw mattress, listening. Your mind tries to reconcile the sanctity of prayer and devotion with the earth-shaking power of a fellow monk's upper respiratory system. You are not alone in this endeavor. The dormitory is filled with dozens of brothers, lying shoulder to shoulder on simple wooden platforms, each draped with a thin straw mattress. They are clothed in their habitual robes, nightcaps pulled low over their foreheads to protect from drafts, though they offer little comfort against the cold stone floor. The simplicity of their accommodations is, in their minds, a form of spiritual discipline. Every element of their sleep environment serves as a reminder of humility and self-denial. Yet the human body has its own agenda. The monks snoring, their restless shifting, and the occasional cough create a living, breathing, and very loud backdrop to your attempts at rest. As you lie down, or rather, as you attempt to lie down without startling someone, you notice how carefully the monks have arranged themselves. There is an almost imperceptible order to the chaos. The younger novices towards one end, the older, more venerable brothers towards the other. Each has learned the subtle choreography of communal sleep. How to roll onto your side without elbowing the man beside you, how to adjust the straw mattress so it doesn't squeak or collapse, how to keep your robe from tangling and your belt from digging into your ribs. It is a dance you have not yet mastered, and the floor is less forgiving than you imagined. You try to focus on your breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. The rhythm of your own body competes with the polyphonic snoring around you. A brother to your right sounds like a creaking wheel, wheezing as he exhales. 2 platforms over, another emits a staccato series of short, rapid snores, almost musical in their timing. You start to imagine the dormitory as a cathedral of sound, each snore a note in a composition you are compelled to endure. Perhaps you mused the Almighty intended for this to be a meditation on patience. Some of the monks shift and adjust in the night, their movements soft but deliberate. A straw mattress squeaks. A robe rustles. A belt slips and jingles faintly, reminding you that even in the pursuit of holy silence, life insists on its presence. You glance around, noting the small personal items tucked at each brother's head. A prayer book, a small wooden cross, maybe a tiny charm against evil spirits. These objects are silent guardians, witnesses to both devotion and human frailty. They are as much part of the dormitory soundscape as the snoring itself, absorbing echoes and providing brief relief from the omnipresent chorus of breath and vibration. In the flickering candlelight, you catch sight of the novice in the corner, his eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. He does not yet understand how to navigate the rules of this space. One errant cough, one sudden movement, and the ripple of sound will awaken a half-dozen brothers. You, having observed and learned from previous nights, tuck your robe closer and close your eyes, willing the symphony of snores into a rhythm you can almost synchronize with. Despite the snoring, or perhaps because of it, a certain calm begins to settle over you. The snoring is not merely noise, it is a reminder of life persisting even in the pursuit of spiritual perfection. The monk's breathing becomes a form of white noise, a reminder that devotion and human frailty coexist, intimately entwined. You begin to notice the tiny details, the way a particular brother exhales sharply at the end of a snore, the gentle rolling of another's shoulder against the mattress, the intermittent creak of the wooden platform beneath them. It is a world of minutiae, and in focusing on it, you feel a strange sense of immersion. You shift slightly, trying to find a comfortable position. The straw mattress is uneven, the wooden platform unforgiving, yet your mind begins to drift. You imagine the life that led each monk here. The early mornings, the strict routines, the vows of silence and obedience. Their days are filled with structured tasks. Tending the gardens, illuminating manuscripts, reading prayers, sweeping the floors. Each day is repetitive, disciplined, and yet each day ends the same way, in this dormitory amidst a sea of snoring brethren. You marvel at the endurance required, the patience honed over years of communal life. You might expect that such close quarters would breed annoyance, conflict even, but the opposite is true. There is a rhythm, a tacit understanding. Each snore, each shuffle, each rustle of cloth is absorbed into a greater pattern. The monks have adapted to this environment, learning to find sleep in a setting that would challenge any ordinary person. You too begin to absorb this rhythm, allowing the cadence of the dormitory to lull you toward slumber. Yet there are still moments of discomfort. The straw mattress presses unevenly against your back, a small rock or clump of dried grass digging into your shoulder. The chill from the stone floor seeps through your robe, and your toes grow cold despite your best efforts. Your ears twitch at the rise and fall of each snore, each exhalation demanding attention. And still you persist. You remind yourself that this is a spiritual exercise as much as a physical one. Endurance, humility, patience, all are tested here. Some nights, the snoring becomes almost musical. A particularly resonant exhalation blends with the soft creak of the floorboards and the distant drip of condensation from the rafters. You close your eyes and imagine yourself conducting this strange nocturnal orchestra. Each monk is an instrument, the bass, the soprano, the percussion of shifting limbs. And you, seated uncomfortably on your straw mattress, are both audience and participant, a humble part of this sacred performance. It is not all peaceful. Occasionally, a particularly forceful snore jolts you awake. A brother shifts too quickly, sending a clatter of straw and wood through the dormitory. The candlelight flickers violently, throwing shadows that dance across the stone walls. You remind yourself to breathe, to refocus, to absorb the disturbances into the rhythm rather than fight them. After all, you are a guest in this world now, and the world of the monastery is not designed for comfort but for reflection, devotion, and endurance. You notice too that the monks have developed subtle techniques for mitigating discomfort. A slight tilt of the head, the careful positioning of a robe or cloak, the adjustment of the belt or tunic to prevent chafing. Even the placement of the straw mattress is deliberate, ensuring that the rough patches do not coincide with pressure points. It is a small, almost invisible choreography, performed nightly, perfected over years, and you begin to mimic it unconsciously, finding minor relief in these adjustments. There are moments when the snoring seems almost gentle. The rhythm is steady, predictable, almost comforting. You start to imagine the snore as a heartbeat of the monastery, a pulse that marks the passage of night. It is both intrusive and protective, a paradox that mirrors life itself, the constant interplay between order and chaos, discipline and indulgence, devotion and human frailty. Some scholars today debate the health implications of sleeping in such conditions. Did the upright posture or simple bedding confer physical benefits, or was it purely spiritual discipline? Did the constant exposure to communal breathing and snoring strengthen immunity, or merely test endurance? Historians and medical researchers are still divided, and you, leaning against the wall, feeling the warmth of a fellow monk's breath and the cool draft from the stone floor, understand why there is no clear answer. The experience is both invigorating and exhausting, a lesson in patience and humility, a trial and a comfort all at once. As the night progresses, your body adjusts to the discomfort. Your back aches less, your ears tune to the snoring symphony, and your mind begins to wander through memories, prayers, and quiet imaginings. The dormitory, once a daunting space filled with intrusive sounds, becomes a cocoon of shared humanity. You are aware of every breath, every shift, every exhalation, yet these details no longer disturb you, they anchor you. Finally, as dawn approaches, the first light of day creeps through the narrow windows. The snoring diminishes as monks stir, stretching stiff limbs and quietly preparing for morning prayers. You sit upright for a moment, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and serenity. The dormitory, once a place of challenge and intrusion, has taught you patience, humility, and the subtle art of finding peace amidst imperfection. And as you rise to join the others, you realize that sleep, like devotion, is a communal act here. Messy, noisy, uncomfortable, and yet profoundly sustaining. The snoring, the straw mattresses, the cold stone walls, they are all part of a rhythm that connects every monk to the generations before, to the cycles of night and day, to a shared pursuit of endurance, reflection, and spiritual grace. You just close your eyes, finally sinking into the embrace of a modest straw mattress, and then it begins, the bells. Not a gentle chime, not a playful reminder of time passing, but a deep, resonant toll that vibrates through stone walls, rattles wooden beams, and thrums in your chest like a drumbeat of inevitability. In the monastery, the night does not belong to you. It belongs to the Lord, and the bells are his heralds, announcing that sleep is secondary to devotion, that even darkness is regimented by divine rhythm. The first bell cuts through the silence with a force that makes your eyes snap open. You blink into the dim candlelight, your hands fumbling to adjust the thin robe and nightcap that offer scant protection against the cold draft creeping from the windows. The sound is not fleeting, it is measured, almost mechanical in its insistence. 1, 2, 3, and still it resonates. You begin to realize that the night in a monastery is not a private affair. It is a landscape ruled by schedules, punctuated by sacred metallic voice, and you are a participant whether you like it or not. As the echoes of the bell fade slightly, the reality sets in. This is not an interruption, it is the core of nocturnal life here. You rise, or rather, sit up with groggy deliberation, aware that the first toll signals a call to prayer. This is the vigilia, the night watch, an hour for reflection, meditation, or psalm chanting. The novice next to you stirs, groaning softly, fumbling for his habit over his night robe. Across the room, an older monk shuffles to the wooden platform edge, carrying a flickering candle. The dance has begun. The communal dormitory, which had seemed so comforting in your initial attempts at sleep, now transforms into a stage for ritualized activity. Straw mattresses shift, robes rustle, and muted whispers blend with the distant tolling. Each bell triggers movement, a subtle shuffle here, a careful descent from the platform there. The monks have perfected this choreography over years. They move with purpose, avoiding unnecessary noise, but the very act of waking and preparing for devotion creates a hum of nocturnal activity that you cannot escape. You are swept along in this tide, rising with the collective, a single participant in a centuries-old rhythm. You pad quietly across the cold stone floor, brushing against walls slick with condensation. The candlelight flickers across your path, casting long, quivering shadows. Each bell seems to echo with the weight of centuries, as if the monastery itself is a living organism, breathing in rhythm with its sacred metal heart. And you, newly awakened, become attuned to the subtle nuances. The slight difference in pitch between bells, the way the sound bounces off vaulted ceilings, the vibration that seems to penetrate bone and marrow. It is overwhelming at first, but gradually the resonance becomes almost meditative, a physical reminder of order, structure, and devotion. While the bells command attention, your body resists. You are aware of your fatigue, of the comfort of a warm mattress and the fleeting softness of your pillow, or rather, the absence of one. You remind yourself that the monks have long accepted this disruption. Sleep is secondary, spiritual vigilance is primary. Every night, without fail, the bells call them to attention, insisting that even rest is subordinate to the cycle of prayer. You begin to mimic the rhythm, inhaling as the bell strikes, exhaling as it fades. It is not comfortable, but slowly your body starts to synchronize. You notice the variety of responses among the brethren. Some rise immediately, standing with practiced grace, their hands clasped in prayer. Others linger, rubbing eyes and stifling yawns, reluctant to leave the warmth of the mattress. One novice trips over a robe, murmuring an apology, while another mutters a quiet curse under his breath, quickly swallowed by guilt and reflection. The bells do not discriminate. They are impartial, impersonal, a law of nature within the spiritual microcosm of the monastery. You realize that adaptation is the only survival strategy. Over time, the monks have learned to anticipate the toll, to awaken almost before the sound fully hits, minimizing the friction between rest and duty. And then there is the ritual itself. As the bells continue their insistent cadence, you find yourself kneeling in the cold stone aisle, candle flickering in hand, eyes adjusting to the dark. The choir of snoring still hums faintly behind you, but it is softened now by the act of standing, of kneeling, of joining in something larger than individual comfort. You begin the psalms, words flowing in a monotone cadence, the Latin syllables rolling off your tongue with practiced precision. This is both discipline and communion. You feel your body resist fatigue while your mind begins to float, riding the repetitive rhythm of sacred verse, the metallic insistence of the bells, and the muted shuffling of fellow monks. The monks have always believed that nighttime devotion fortifies the soul, that waking in the middle of sleep is not a punishment but a pathway. Scholars today still debate whether the constant interruptions aid spiritual focus or simply foster exhaustion. Some argue that the ritualized waking aligns with natural circadian rhythms, promoting alertness and reflection. Others insist that sleep fragmentation is detrimental to health, a cruel imposition masquerading as devotion. You, in the dim candlelight, experiencing both the fatigue and the solemnity, understand why there is no consensus. The night is both restorative and demanding, sacred and physical, an exercise in endurance that tests the limits of body and spirit simultaneously. As the night progresses, you begin to notice subtle patterns in the tolling. There is the initial sharp strike, the long resonance that follows, and the diminishing echoes that linger like memory. Each bell signals a phase of nocturnal duty. One for prayer, another for meditation, a third for reading sacred texts. You follow along, moving from one task to another, guided by the relentless cadence. Your mind, initially irritated by the disruption, begins to find rhythm in the routine. Fatigue transforms into a kind of attentive calm, a strange balance between alertness and drowsiness, where awareness and rest coexist uneasily but harmoniously. You begin to understand the monks' mastery of this nocturnal discipline. They have trained themselves to sleep lightly, to awaken at the precise moment, to perform their duties with minimal physical and mental exertion. Even the snoring, the cold, the discomfort, and the persistent echo of the bells are integrated into a system of efficiency and devotion. The architecture itself reinforces this rhythm. Vaulted ceilings amplify sound, corridors carry echoes, and the dormitory layout ensures that every monk hears the toll in perfect synchrony. It is as if the building itself participates in the discipline, ensuring that sleep and wakefulness are not merely physical states but spiritual exercises, embedded in stone and metal. You find yourself reflecting on the contrast between this life and your own modern expectations. In your world, night is for rest, a private affair, a sacred hour of disconnection from obligations. Here, night is public, regimented, and sacred, a time when individual desire is subordinate to the communal, when comfort is secondary to devotion. The bells do not merely measure time. They measure obedience, mindfulness, and spiritual attentiveness. They insist that the night belongs not to the sleeper but to God, and the monks, including yourself, are merely participants in this larger order. Despite the disruption, there is a peculiar serenity in surrendering to this rhythm. The initial shock of the bell fades, replaced by an internal synchronization with the cadence. Each toll becomes a marker, guiding you through prayer, meditation, and reflection. You learn to anticipate, to move with the sound, to embrace the interruption as an integral part of the night. The cold is less sharp, the straw less unforgiving, and even the distant snoring fades into a harmonious backdrop. You are part of a system larger than yourself, where sleep is secondary but still precious, framed by discipline, devotion, and the relentless tolling of sacred metal. As the night wears on, you find yourself slipping in and out of light slumber between the bells. The rhythm becomes almost hypnotic, a meditation in sound and motion. Fatigue and devotion intertwine, creating a state that is both restful and alert, where awareness and unconsciousness coexist. You are aware of your body, your fellow monks, and the stone environment, yet you are also transported, carried by the shared ritual, the resonant tolling, and the disciplined grace of centuries of nocturnal devotion. Finally, the early pre-dawn bell signals the end of the night vigil. You rise once more, shivering slightly, adjusting your robe and cap. The dormitory stirs, the snoring fades, and the first faint light creeps through narrow windows. Though your sleep has been fragmented, there is a sense of completion, of participation in something profound. The night has been measured, sacred, and structured, a reminder that even in darkness, order and devotion govern every breath, every movement, and every heartbeat. You understand, as you stretch your limbs and prepare for morning prayers, that sleep in the monastery is not merely rest. It is discipline, devotion, and a test of endurance. The bells, which once seemed intrusive, are now the heartbeat of the night, and you, along with every monk, have been part of this living, breathing ritual that transcends comfort, merges duty with awareness, and binds generations together in a shared nocturnal rhythm. You awaken, or rather, you realize you are awake in a strange way, because your limbs are not where you expected them to be. Your feet brush the cold stone floor, though your mind had been floating somewhere between sleep and thought. You're standing, or stumbling, on your own, yet oddly aware of the others around you. The dormitory is quiet, more quiet than it has any right to be, except for the occasional shuffle of straw and the faint hiss of the fireplace. And then it hits you, you are moving while asleep. In the medieval imagination, this is no ordinary phenomenon. You are not merely sleepwalking, you are dreamwalking. The spirits, the demons, or some mischievous angel might be guiding your body across the room while your mind drifts elsewhere. Monks and villagers alike have long whispered about dreamwalkers, the unlucky souls who wander in slumber, unknowingly inviting spirits to probe, torment, or perhaps even possess their bodies. And tonight, by some cruel alignment of stars and fatigue, you have become one of them. A low murmur spreads from the corner of the dormitory. Fellow monks, silent sentinels of the night until now, have noticed. Their eyes, adjusted to the dim candlelight, watch your staggered steps with a mix of concern and discipline. One moves quickly, pressing a flat iron against the edge of the wooden platform. Another retrieves a small bundle of herbs, their pungent aroma filling the air with rosemary, sage, and a hint of smoke. You feel the faint pressure of iron strips on your arms and legs, carefully applied to prevent your nocturnal wandering from escalating into what the villagers fear most, demonic attachment. You try to speak, to reassure them that it's merely sleep, that you mean no harm, but your words tumble out in a garbled whisper, an incoherent mess of vowels and consonants. Your fellow monks do not flinch. They are practiced in this ritual, this nocturnal intervention. Dreamwalking has been a concern for centuries. Scholars, both clerical and medical, still debate whether it is a spiritual affliction or a physical phenomenon caused by fatigue, overwork, and disrupted circadian rhythms. Tonight, you are living proof of the ambiguity, straddling the line between natural sleep and supernatural suspicion. As the iron plates are affixed, you become aware of the deliberate choreography surrounding you. The monks have developed a precise method. First, assess the dreamwalker's trajectory. Second, apply iron to the extremities. Third, whisper protective psalms or Latin incantations. Fourth, gently guide the sleepwalker back to bed. The process is designed to prevent harm both to the dreamwalker and the surrounding brethren. You notice the combination of pragmatism and superstition, a balancing act between physical safety and spiritual safeguard. Even the herbs are not merely olfactory comfort. They are believed to repel malicious spirits, a fragrant shield against unseen forces. You stumble slightly as one of the monks steps in front of you, guiding your path with a careful hand. You feel the weight of their gaze, the authority of centuries-old tradition pressing against your awareness. The iron plates are surprisingly cold, almost shocking to the skin, but strangely grounding, tethering you to the waking world. And yet your mind drifts still. You remember fragments of dreams, a shadow moving in a darkened hallway, a whisper you could not fully comprehend, the faint touch of hands that may or may not have existed. All of this converges in a surreal awareness. Your body is here, restrained and guided, while your consciousness dances along the edges of sleep. The dormitory hums with the quiet diligence of the other monks. They move with measured grace, their robes brushing against the straw bedding, their eyes alert but unflinching. Some murmur protective prayers, others simply observe, ready to intervene if your wandering becomes dangerous. You are acutely aware of each small sound, the scrape of iron, the soft exhalation of breath, the faint crackle of the fireplace, and yet your mind floats above, examining itself as if watching a mirror within a mirror. Sleepwalking in this context is not merely a physical act. It is a moral and spiritual test, an ambiguous ritual that blurs the boundary between the corporeal and the ethereal. You become conscious of your own history of fragmented sleep. The segmented nights, the midnight awakenings, the discomfort of the straw mattress and shared bed, and it all converges here. Fatigue is the accomplice of dreamwalking, yet superstition casts a shadow over something wholly natural. The monks have no doubt that a wandering body in the night invites spirits, demons, or misfortune. You feel a pang of humility, realizing that centuries of human experience, careful observation, and ritual caution have led to this moment. The iron is both restraint and protection, grounding your body while preserving your spirit. As the protective measures continue, you notice the variety of responses among the brethren. Some whisper warnings, "Do not touch the altar of the Lord in your sleep," or "Pray lest the devil take notice." Others are pragmatic, reminding each other of the need to apply herbs and iron quickly, lest the sleepwalker wander into danger or disrupt the sanctity of the dormitory. You feel a strange mixture of embarrassment and relief. Embarrassment that your body has betrayed you, and relief that centuries-old wisdom has created a system capable of containing this nocturnal anomaly without panic or harm. Your steps falter as one of the older monks places a firm hand on your shoulder, guiding you back toward the straw mattress. The iron plates press against your limbs, the herbs scent the air with pungent reassurance, and the psalms murmur through the room like a low, protective tide. Slowly, almost reluctantly, you feel yourself returning to the bed, guided by a combination of tactile feedback, spiritual reassurance, and communal vigilance. Your mind begins to drift once more, but now with an awareness of safety, of structure, of ancient care woven into the very fabric of monastic life. You lie back on the straw, the iron plate still attached, your limbs slightly numb but secure. The herbs linger in the air, a fragrant reminder of both caution and care. The dormitory settles once more into quiet, the occasional shuffle of straw and the gentle breathing of fellow monks marking the rhythm of nocturnal life. Your heart slows, your mind softens, and you sense the delicate balance maintained by centuries of ritual. Dreamwalking is acknowledged, contained, and ritualized, neither fully condemned nor fully understood. Sleep begins to creep back, tentative at first, then more assured. You drift between consciousness and dreaming, the iron and herbs, the psalms and whispers, guiding you into a gentle, structured rest. You realize that your body, though briefly autonomous, has been woven into a larger communal tapestry. Dreamwalking in this context is both a natural lapse and a spiritual negotiation, a reminder of the fragility of sleep, the care of community, and the persistence of belief. You notice how the architecture itself participates in the nocturnal ritual. The high ceilings carry sound, the cold stone floors amplify every footstep, and the placement of straw beds ensures that each dreamwalker is visible and reachable. There is no privacy here, no quiet retreat for independent sleep. Every act is observed, every movement is potentially significant, and the monk's interventions are as much about preserving spiritual order as physical safety. You begin to see the night as a carefully choreographed interplay between the body, the mind, and the community, where superstition and practicality are inseparably intertwined. The night stretches onward, and as you lie on the straw mattress recovering from your brief excursion, your mind wanders to the interpretations of this phenomenon. Some medieval physicians considered dreamwalking a result of humoral imbalance, too much phlegm or bile, while others viewed it as a spiritual trial, a sign that the soul was wandering ahead of the body. Today, historians debate the true causes, acknowledging that both fatigue and belief shape the experience. You realize that your own nocturnal wandering embodies this duality, a vivid illustration of the intersection between physical reality and cultural interpretation. Gradually, the dormitory settles. Your limbs, once restrained by iron, relax. The scent of herbs lingers but softens. The murmured psalms fade into the distance, replaced by the gentle exhalations of sleeping monks. Your mind, finally at ease, begins to slip fully into dream once more, this time without wandering, guided by the delicate balance of vigilance and care. In the quiet aftermath, you reflect on the layers of medieval wisdom, the fear of demonic influence, the practical application of restraint, the communal oversight, and the delicate negotiation between belief and reality. Dreamwalking is no longer frightening. It is a structured, almost ritualized experience, a bridge between sleep, community, and spiritual discipline. The iron, the herbs, the psalms, and the vigilant eyes of your brethren converge to ensure safety, a reminder that even in the deepest, most mysterious hours of night, care and structure prevail. You drift fully into sleep, your body finally still, your mind partially aware, and you sense the quiet rhythm of the monastery night continuing around you. The dormitory, once a stage of chaos and concern, now hums softly with the unified breathing of those who sleep and those who watch. And in this suspended moment, you realize that dreamwalking, like so many medieval practices, is a blend of fear, faith, and ingenuity, an enduring testament to human resilience and imagination. You lie down, expecting a quiet night, but the moment your head meets the straw mattress, the chaos begins. Tiny feet scramble across the bed, sometimes human, sometimes feathered, and a soft clucking or giggling fills the air. Your mind, half drifting into slumber, immediately notices that your assumptions about personal space are laughably naive. In the medieval household, privacy is a luxury no one can afford, and tonight, as you attempt to find comfort, you are learning that firsthand. The bed is crowded. Children curl against your side, limbs tangling unpredictably. One of them squirms awake, whispers a small, urgent request for water, or a blanket tugged too hard. Their skin is warm, a stark contrast to the cold straw beneath. You shift, trying to find a spot where your spine isn't contorted like a question mark. But the floor of the bed, composed of compressed hay and old linens, offers no perfect alignment. Somewhere near your feet, a chicken, escaped from the kitchen coop, is nesting. Its tiny, sharp claws leave little scratches, and it pecks softly at the bedding, as if testing for hidden grains or forgotten crumbs. In this medieval tableau, such circumstances are completely normal. Families, servants, and livestock often shared the same sleeping space, sometimes even the same bed. You and your chickens, your children and the neighbor's goat, are all part of the same nocturnal ecosystem. This is not considered unhygienic or absurd. It is a pragmatic survival strategy. In the frigid draft of stone cottages, the warmth generated by bodies, human or animal, is literally life-saving. Your body absorbs the heat radiating from the children and the bird, their tiny forms pressing close against yours. It is crowded, awkward, and yet effective. You try to adjust, gently nudging the chicken aside, but it resists, convinced you are some rival seeking to claim its newfound straw kingdom. The children giggle at your fumbled movements, their laughter a mix of delight and sleepy confusion. You realize that every attempt at stillness produces subtle disturbances. The mattress creaks, the hay rustles, and the chicken reacts. Sleep, elusive as it always is in modern quiet bedrooms, feels like an impossible goal tonight. Somewhere in the periphery you notice other household members moving through the dim candlelight, an elder sibling adjusting a blanket, a mother checking on a younger child, the soft scrape of wooden sandals on the stone floor. Their presence reminds you that in this medieval world, sleep is not an isolated act. It is a shared, communal performance, a negotiation of warmth, safety, and attention. You, tangled in this intricate web, are simultaneously an actor and an observer, experiencing firsthand the overlapping rhythms of human and animal life. The children settle again, but only momentarily. One begins a quiet whimper, prompting the mother to reach over and soothe the small, restless body. The chicken flaps its wings once, and a nearby kitten streaks across the bed in startled panic. You feel a momentary jolt of surprise as the kitten brushes against your ankle. Even your attempts at composed patience are tested by the constant movement of small living bodies. You realize that medieval parents, while familiar with these nocturnal disruptions, must have developed a remarkable tolerance for chaos. They have trained themselves to sleep with attention, alert yet calm, a skill you now appreciate though you may never master it fully. Amidst the bedlam, you notice other subtle cues. The faint sound of a rooster settling in the corner, the creak of the wooden beams above, and the distant echo of wind through the unsealed window. All of these sounds mix with the shuffle of bodies, creating an environment that is simultaneously alive and unpredictable, a living symphony of the medieval night. You sense that sleep here is not merely physical rest. It is a navigation of attention, a practice of adjusting to a multitude of living presences, learning to exist in shared space without complete autonomy. As you attempt to find a comfortable position, you consider the practicality behind this chaos. Stone cottages are cold, often damp, and poorly insulated. Fires burn low at night to conserve fuel. In such circumstances, sharing a bed with children and animals is a strategic act, an improvised system of temperature regulation and security. Each body contributes warmth, each movement conveys a subtle signal of life, ensuring that the family survives the night. You, tangled among the straw and limbs, become an integral participant in this adaptive arrangement. Your mind drifts toward the sensory details, the scratch of chicken claws, the soft patter of child's breath, the occasional murmur or sigh as someone shifts position. These become part of a rhythm, a lullaby of organized disorder. Unlike the silent, controlled bedrooms you know in modern life, here sleep is both chaotic and functional, a testament to human ingenuity under environmental constraint. You feel a strange intimacy with those around you, an awareness that every shared night, every intertwined limb strengthens the bonds of survival. Occasionally, the chicken ventures closer to your torso, pecking at an imagined crumb. You gently redirect it, mindful of the tiny instinctive intelligence it brings to the room. Nearby, a toddler shifts again, kicking off the thin blanket, while a small cat curls into your armpit, seeking warmth. Your body becomes a platform for multiple creatures, each claiming space according to instinct and need. You notice a subtle pressure on your ribs and a soft flutter against your face, an intimacy imposed by necessity rather than choice. Historically, this form of shared sleep was not an anomaly. Researchers and historians note that human-animal co-sleeping was widespread across rural Europe, particularly among the peasantry. Livestock contributed heat, deterred pests, and provided immediate access for early morning chores. Even in wealthier households, occasional co-sleeping with animals persisted, though perhaps more selectively and with better bedding. You can almost imagine the practical calculations made by a medieval parent. warmth versus inconvenience, safety versus privacy, comfort versus vigilance. Every night, these calculations played out silently on straw mattresses, creating a complex ecosystem of bodies. The room's chaos is punctuated by bursts of laughter, murmured complaints, and the soft cooing of birds. You realize that sleep here is an exercise in negotiation of body, temperature, sound, and attention. The children's nudges, the kitten's swipes, the chicken's pecks, all these interruptions require adaptation. You shift again, creating a new alignment that accommodates the various occupants. In a way, this process becomes meditative. Every adjustment is deliberate, every breath accounted for, every micro-movement significant. You reflect on the historical perspective. Scholars still debate the implications of such nocturnal arrangements. Was this environment harmful to sleep quality, or did it cultivate resilience and attentiveness? Did children raised in such proximity to humans and animals develop unique social and sensory skills? Medieval historians are divided, yet the evidence suggests that survival and warmth took precedence over comfort, and the routines of bed sharing were embedded deeply in cultural norms. Tonight you are living this history. Every tiny claw, every child's sigh, every restless shuffle of straw, becomes a direct connection to lives centuries past. Hours pass, or maybe it is minutes. Time is elusive in this half-conscious state. The chicken finally settles, pressing its body against the straw. The children, lulled by proximity and warmth, drift into deeper sleep. You feel the tension in your muscles slowly dissolve as you adapt to the rhythms of those around you. The room, once chaotic, now feels like a single organism, breathing collectively, each occupant contributing to the nocturnal harmony. You drift further, caught between awareness and unconsciousness. The lessons of shared sleep crystallize in your mind: adaptation, vigilance, warmth, and communal responsibility. Medieval families mastered this balance not for luxury but for survival. Each restless movement, each accidental nudge, each cluck or giggle, served a purpose, keeping bodies safe, warmth circulating, and spirits secure. In this tangled bed of children, animals, and humans, you finally appreciate the ingenuity, patience, and resilience that sustained lives through harsh winters and uncertain nights. As the first light of dawn begins to seep through the gaps in the wooden shutters, you awaken fully, still nestled among the remnants of a night's chaos. The children stir, the animals shuffle, and the room hums with life. You realize that sleep in this world is never solitary. It is a shared, lived experience, a blend of intimacy, survival, and unpredictability. Your body, once tense and alert, is now gently warm, cocooned by the collective presence of others. Tonight, the lessons of the medieval night have been lived, embroidered in the rustle of straw, the warmth of limbs, and the delicate chaos of coexistence. For a moment, you allow yourself a smile, acknowledging that despite the discomfort, the disruptions, and the oddities, you have participated in something profoundly human. Every squeak, sigh, and shuffle has become part of the rhythm of life, part of a system that sustained families for generations. You may return to modern bedrooms with plush mattresses and quiet walls, but the memory of tonight, the chickens, the children, the chaos, will linger, a reminder that comfort is relative and that warmth, companionship, and survival often outweigh solitude. And as you finally rise from the bed, stretching stiff limbs and brushing stray straw from your hair, you carry a new appreciation for the ingenuity, patience, and endurance of medieval sleepers. Their nights were crowded, noisy, and unpredictable, yet they thrived within the chaos, turning shared beds into instruments of life, warmth, and community. You may never need to co-sleep with a chicken again, but tonight, you have glimpsed a form of sleep that is messy, intimate, and enduringly human. You lie back on your straw mattress, a thin blanket pulled tight around your shoulders, and close your eyes. Outside, the night is alive in a way that modern bedrooms will never know. A distant church bell tolls, its sonorous clang drifting through the cold stone walls. Thunder rolls low and menacing, shaking the rafters as if the sky itself is rehearsing for some grand apocalypse. Somewhere far away, the faint clamor of a besieged town, clanging metal, shouts, and the occasional war horn, echoes over the hills. Yet here you are, on this simple bed, a witness to chaos and history, learning a lesson that medieval people knew by heart. Sleep is an act of defiance, a small victory against a restless world. You shift slightly, trying to find a comfortable spot amid the scratchy straw and the uneven folds of your blanket. It isn't plush, it isn't soft, but it supports your body enough to remind you that even in uncertainty you can rest. The medieval night is a symphony of disturbances. Wind whistling through cracks in the walls, the occasional clatter from animals nearby, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of other household members in their shared beds. You notice that sleep here is not an isolated endeavor. It is a skill honed by generations who knew that danger, noise, and cold were never polite enough to wait until morning. Your mind wanders as the bell tolls again, deeper now, reverberating through the stone. In the distance, lightning flickers across the clouds, illuminating the landscape in brief, brilliant bursts. You imagine medieval villagers huddled together in these same moments, adjusting their straw mattresses, whispering prayers and muttering words meant to protect them from both spiritual and physical storms. The historical record suggests that these villagers treated sleep as a pragmatic shield, a daily ritual to buffer themselves against uncertainty. And as you breathe in the slightly musty scent of straw and smoke from a dying hearth, you sense that same instinct stirring within you. A sudden rumble of thunder makes the wooden beams above groan, and your muscles instinctively tense. In modern times, such noises might jolt you awake, triggering a minor panic. But tonight, your body is learning the rhythms of survival, the ability to recognize danger without succumbing to fear. You remind yourself that the medieval mind was trained to filter the noises of night, to sleep despite the storm, despite the bells, despite the distant drums of war. You realize that this training was less about bravery and more about necessity. Sleep, after all, is vital, and life rarely pauses for comfort. Your imagination carries you to the heart of a village besieged, where families huddle together, fires burning low, livestock pressed close for warmth. Every creak, every shout, every animal's whimper is part of the nocturnal orchestra. You consider how medieval people would strategically position themselves to optimize warmth and security. Children near the center, adults on the edges, animals tucked into corners or between beds. Every decision was a compromise, a calculated response to environmental and social pressures. You, lying amid straw and shadow, begin to understand that these arrangements are not chaos. They are a system of nocturnal survival, a protocol passed down through centuries. Somewhere nearby, a dog growls softly at a distant noise, its low warning blending with the thunder. You shift again, adjusting your blanket and curling slightly to conserve heat. The smell of damp straw, mingled with faint traces of herbs and smoke, fills the air. Medieval households often burned rosemary, sage, or other fragrant herbs to drive away pests. But the aroma also served a subtle psychological purpose, creating a familiar, protective environment amid uncertainty. You notice that your breathing slows as the scents mingle with the rhythmic tolling of the church bell, a pattern that begins to lull you despite the chaos. You think about the cold, uninsulated walls, the drafts sneaking through wooden shutters, and the fact that people of this era had no central heating. Yet they still slept. They adapted by layering clothing, curling with children and animals, and using simple tools like nightcaps and thick blankets to retain warmth. You, lying here, experience the same strategy firsthand. The cold is never fully banished, but it becomes a companion, a reminder of human ingenuity. You notice that your muscles relax as your body learns to synchronize with the shared heat of the room, accepting discomfort as part of the rhythm of survival. A soft scratching sound interrupts your thoughts. Somewhere in the room, a mouse or small rodent scurries across the floor. You barely flinch, having learned that medieval households coexisted with a variety of creatures. Fleas, lice, and mice were common companions, and people developed ingenious methods to mitigate their presence. Herbs burned in corners, straw refreshed periodically, and vigilance during waking hours. These measures, though imperfect, reflect a mindset where sleep and survival were intertwined with adaptation, a lesson that modern life has mostly obscured. You recall tales of monks who slept in long dormitories, aligned in rigid rows, sometimes sitting upright or resting on simple boards. They cultivated an ability to rest deeply amid snoring neighbors, chanting, and candlelit movements. The idea was to train the body and mind to tolerate external stimuli, a skill essential for both spiritual discipline and practical resilience. You can almost hear the echoes of these monasteries in the room, the faint clatter of sandals, whispered prayers, the shuffle of straw. The lessons are tangible. Sleep is a skill honed by patience, acceptance, and a recognition that the world will not wait. In the darkness, your thoughts drift to distant battles and sieges. You imagine villagers retreating to cellars or barns, clinging to one another for warmth while drums of war sound miles away. Smoke from fires curls into the night, carrying the scent of bread, wood, and sometimes death. Yet even here, sleep persists. It is a defiant assertion of life, a quiet rebellion against the uncontrollable forces surrounding you. You feel a kinship with those who faced the same trials centuries ago, understanding that rest is not indulgence, it is preparation. Lightning flashes again, momentarily illuminating the simple furnishings. Rough-hewn tables, a scattering of pottery, a pile of worn clothing doubling as bedding. You notice the subtle hierarchy in the room's arrangement. Children nearer the center for warmth, elders along the periphery, animals strategically tucked to maintain heat. Every element contributes to a carefully orchestrated nocturnal ecosystem. You, an intruder in both time and space, feel the delicate balance of chaos and order, learning that even amid apocalypse, humans find ways to endure. The bell tolls once more, slow and deliberate. Somewhere a cat stretches, tiny claws raking the straw. A child coughs softly and a dog whines at the distant thunder. Your body, initially tense, begins to sync with these rhythms. You understand that sleep here is not the absence of activity, but an integration with it, a coexistence with sound, movement, and life itself. You let your body settle, the straw compressing beneath you, the warmth of others radiating inward, the distant storm providing a lullaby of power and inevitability. Historical sources suggest that villagers often kept vigil in shifts, sometimes rising multiple times at night to tend fires, check livestock, or monitor the horizon for danger. You imagine the subtle calculations involved, balancing rest with alertness, warmth with accessibility, human presence with animal behavior. These patterns were not arbitrary, they reflect a finely tuned understanding of the interplay between survival and rest. As you drift deeper into sleep, you sense that same awareness entering your body, a rhythm of alertness folded gently into relaxation, readiness embedded in rest. Hours pass, though you are unaware of the exact count. The storm outside ebbs and flows, the bells continue their tolling, and distant noises fade in and out. Yet your body adjusts, finding microsymmetries amid the chaos. The weight of the blanket, the pressure of the straw, the gentle warmth radiating from nearby bodies. You realize that the medieval night, for all its threats and disturbances, is a carefully orchestrated dance of adaptation, where every sound, every movement, every breath contributes to the stability of the collective. Morning approaches with a gradual softening of the storm and the first hints of light sneaking through cracks. You awaken, body warm, heart steady, having survived not only the night but the micro-apocalypse that each nocturnal hour represents. You reflect on what this sleep has taught you, the art of resting amid uncertainty, embracing discomfort, and integrating chaos into the rhythm of life. Medieval people did not await perfect conditions to sleep. They learned to sleep within the imperfections, finding resilience in proximity, warmth, and shared vigilance. You rise, stretching stiff muscles and brushing stray straw from your hair. Outside, the world is awakening. Chickens cluck, children stir, distant bells mark the new day. Inside, the lessons of the night linger. You carry with you a newfound appreciation for the endurance, ingenuity, and quiet bravery of those who slept amid storms, sieges, and uncertainty. Sleep is not simply a retreat from life. In the medieval world, it was an act of living fully within it, a nightly triumph over chaos. And now, having experienced it firsthand, you feel a deep, intimate connection to the rhythms of history. Now that the storm has passed and the first morning light filters gently through the cracks, you let yourself sink back into the sensation of quiet. Your body feels heavier, not from exhaustion, but from the gentle release of tension accumulated over the night. Each breath is slow and deliberate, a small meditation on the fact that you have endured the chaos and emerged unscathed. You notice the subtle hum of life around you, a bird chirping outside, a soft breeze rustling through the leaves, the distant murmur of a stream. These sounds are no longer threats. They are companions, lullabies that remind you that the world, while unpredictable, continues to turn. You begin to focus on the warmth still lingering in your muscles, the comforting weight of your blanket, and the faint scent of straw and herbs. Imagine this. Centuries ago, villagers would awaken in much the same way, stretching slowly on their simple beds, bodies attuned to the rhythm of day and night rather than clocks and alarms. Their mornings were not rushed. They began with a deep awareness of the world around them, a connection to the natural cycles of life. And now, lying here, you share in that timeless ritual, your senses gently absorbing the subtle symphony of dawn. Your mind drifts lazily through memories of the night, the tolling bells, the distant thunder, the warmth of shared bodies, and the tiny, persistent movements of animals. Each of these elements, once chaotic and potentially alarming, now feels like part of a larger pattern, a rhythm designed to teach patience, presence, and resilience. You understand in a quiet and profound way that sleep is not merely a retreat from reality, it is a bridge, a gentle passage that allows you to process, adapt, and grow within it. Take a moment to feel your heartbeat, steady and calm, each beat a quiet affirmation of survival and endurance. Reflect on the tiny victories of the night, the moments when you managed to drift back to sleep despite the cold, the noise, and the uncertainty. These small triumphs are powerful, teaching you that rest is possible even under imperfect conditions, that peace can exist amid noise, and that your body and mind are far more adaptable than you often realize. As your thoughts begin to slow, imagine the medieval villagers beginning their day. Some move with purpose toward chores and tending to animals, while others linger a moment longer, savoring the rare comfort of warmth and quiet. There is a rhythm here, a balance between action and stillness, and you feel yourself slipping gently into that same cadence. Your eyelids grow heavy but not in resistance. This is the soft, willing descent into a dreamlike state where your body and mind can float freely, unburdened by the worries of yesterday or tomorrow. Breathe in slowly, filling your lungs with calm. Exhale gently, releasing the remnants of tension. Let your thoughts drift like the soft morning mist outside your window, light and insubstantial. Imagine the warmth of the sun touching your skin, the sound of distant water flowing, the gentle movement of air through trees. You are safe. You are present. You are learning in the quiet, intimate way that only sleep can teach, the rhythms of history, endurance, and the art of finding peace amidst unpredictability. And now, as you sink fully into the embrace of stillness, allow the last conscious traces of the medieval night to fade. The storm, the bells, the distant drums of war, they are all softened by the distance of time and the protective cocoon of your bed. Here, in this suspended moment, you are both a part of history and entirely yourself. You float in a gentle liminality, where the lessons of the past mingle with your own breathing, creating a sensation of timeless calm. Feel each muscle relax, from your shoulders down to your toes, as your mind continues its slow drift. The world outside no longer presses against you. It exists only as a quiet, protective hum. Your thoughts, once sharp and insistent, now float softly, like leaves on a calm river. In this space, you are free to rest completely, to surrender to the gentle sway of unconsciousness, and to carry with you the subtle wisdom of centuries. Let your imagination picture the village at dawn. Children stirring, animals stretching, smoke rising from hearths, and the first tentative steps of a day full of life. And yet, in your own body, in your own space, there is no rush. You are embraced by the quiet, wrapped in the continuity of human experience, touched by the resilience, ingenuity, and enduring calm of those who slept before you. As your breathing slows and deepens, as each exhale takes you further from the edges of wakefulness, feel a sense of profound connection, to yourself, to history, and to the quiet resilience that has carried humans through storms, sieges, and long, uncertain nights. Here, in this gentle space, there is nothing to do but rest, nothing to fear, and nothing that requires immediate attention. You are cradled in time, in rhythm, and in the unbroken chain of nights that have always preceded day. And now, with one last slow inhale and exhale, let your body fully surrender to sleep. Feel the straw beneath you, the warmth of blankets, the fading echo of distant bells. Know that you are safe, that the world continues to turn, and that you are part of a long, unbroken lineage of sleepers who have found peace amidst uncertainty. Drift further into this calm, letting each breath, each heartbeat, and each quiet whisper of wind guide you gently toward the place where dreams meet history, and where rest becomes a sanctuary of the soul.